Chapter 2173. Lord Sanctum Leader. Upon hearing the loud voice that resounded in the White Tiger Sanctum, the eyes of the White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples, who had rushed to Duan Lingtian, brightened immediately. Judging from Lord Sanctum Leader's tone, he seems a little angry. How can he not be angry? Duan Lingtian dares to bully Lord Sanctum Leader. With Lord Sanctum Leader's temper, how can he tolerate this? However, Duan Lingtian actually dares to challenge Lord Sanctum Leader. Is he really confident he can defeat Lord Sanctum Leader? Many of the White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples discussed among themselves. Based on their words, it was obvious they were not certain if Duan Lingtian was capable of defeating the Sanctum Leader of White Tiger Sanctum. After all, they had witnessed Duan Lingtian's monstrous strength a few years ago, when Duan Lingtian was still in the Zoroastrianism. He had never been at a disadvantage no matter who he was up against. Moreover, he would always win whenever he initiated a battle. Today, as soon as he returned to the Zoroastrianism, he immediately challenged another person to a duel. This time, his target was not a Zoroastrianism disciple. Instead, it was a Golden Flame Elder from the Zoroastrianism sect, who was also the Sanctum Leader of White Tiger Sanctum. As the Sanctum Leader of White Tiger Sanctum, one of the four symbol sanctums, he could be considered as one of the strongest Golden Flame Elders in the Zoroastrianism sect. When they recalled Duan Lingtian's past achievements and the strength of the Sanctum Leader of White Tiger Sanctum, they were at a loss. They were not certain who was stronger. Lord Sanctum Leader is a powerhouse at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage, while Duan Lingtian was either one of the strongest powerhouses at the third or fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage 3 years ago. Now that 3 years have passed, it's hard to say if he's strong enough to defeat Lord Sanctum Leader. The further one goes on the path of cultivation, the slower one's progress becomes. This is especially true after the fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage. Even if Duan Lingtian had broken through to the fourth form of the Saint Celestial stage 3 years ago, with his innate talent, he might not be able to break through to the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage in 3 years. I think so too. Therefore, if Lord Altar Master fights with him, I think Lord Altar Master will win. I can't wait to see Lord Sanctum Lord torture him. How dare he act so presumptuously in our White Tiger Sanctum? Does he really think that there's no one in the White Tiger Sanctum who can stop him? In the end, most of the elders and disciples of the White Tiger Sanctum sided with the Sanctum Leader of the White Tiger Sanctum. They felt the Sanctum Leader of the White Tiger Sanctum would definitely emerge victorious in the duel with the Duan Lingtian. Whoosh! A deafening sound rang in the air. Before the group of White Tiger Sanctum's disciples with a weaker cultivation base could react, they saw another figure standing near Duan Lingtian. The figure belonged to a tall and sturdy middle-aged man. He was dressed in the robes of the Zoroastrianism elders. However, the flames embroidered on his robes were golden, coupled with the golden flames that formed a huge tiger with the word King on its forehead. It was not difficult to identify him. He was the Sanctum Leader of the White Tiger Sanctum, Lu Qing. Lu Qing's figure was tall and sturdy. His face was covered with a curly beard. He had a pair of large eyes and a pair of thick eyebrows. In addition to his fluffy hair, he gave off a valiant feeling. He looked like a tiger ready to hunt as he stood there. He gave off a dangerous vibe. Lord Sanctum Leader! Lord Sanctum Leader! As soon as Lu Qing appeared, the elders and disciples of the White Tiger Sanctum bowed respectfully at him. Lu Qing nodded calmly as he stared at Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, although I've never seen you before, I've heard about you. I know you're a rare prodigy in the Zoroastrianism. Moreover, you're the first person whom Lord Sanctum Leader personally invited back. I'm very impressed by you. Lu Qing said that he was impressed, but his tone was full of disdain. This was because he knew the reason the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism had invited Duan Lingtian back was because he wanted to borrow the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet, from Duan Lingtian to deal with the devil clans when they invaded the Upper Province and the Zoroastrianism. I've heard of White Tiger Sanctum's Sanctum Lord Lu Qing. I've heard of you as well. Duan Lingtian replied indifferently. Duan Lingtian, I know you're quite talented. After so many years, I'm sure your cultivation base has improved a lot. However, do you really think you're a match for me? If that's the case, I have to say I'm very disappointed in you. At this moment, you're nothing but a brainless brute in my eyes. Lu Qing felt even more provoked by Duan Lingtian's calm tone. When he spoke again, his tone had become colder. Why don't we try and see if I'm a match for you? Duan Lingtian did not seem to care about Lu Qing's tone, that was gradually turning cold. He still looked indifferent, as though he did not take Lu Qing seriously at all. In fact, he did not take Lu Qing seriously at all. Lu Qing, the sanctum leader of the White Tiger Sanctum, and a golden flame elder of the Zoroastrianism, had a cultivation base at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage at most. Putting aside his other techniques, his cultivation base alone was more than enough to defeat Lu Qing. After all, he was currently at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Lu Qing was infuriated when he saw Duan Lingtian did not take him seriously. Saint Origin surged out of his body and shrouded his body with a terrifying aura. Some of the White Tiger Sanctum's disciples, with a weaker cultivation base, were forced to retreat by the aura. Where does Duan Lingtian get his courage from? He actually dares to look down on Lord Sanctum Leader. Duan Lingtian's indifference shocked the White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples present on the scene. They did not know where Duan Lingtian got his courage from. It was as though he was certain he could defeat the Sanctum Leader of the White Tiger Sanctum. Lord Sanctum Leader is angry. I'm afraid Duan Lingtian will lose a layer of skin, even if he doesn't die today. Many of the White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples could not help but shake their heads when they sensed Lu Qing's anger. They felt sorry for Duan Lingtian. Does Duan Lingtian really think he's invincible after being away for a few years? Let's make him suffer today and show him where he stands. How dare he act so presumptuously in front of Lord Sanctum Leader of the White Tiger Sanctum? He's just seeking death. He's not seeking death. After all, Lord Sect Leader personally invited him back. It's impossible for Lord Sanctum Leader to kill him. However, I'm sure he'll definitely suffer a few superficial injuries today. Most of the White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples did not have high hopes for Duan Lingtian at all. They thought Duan Lingtian was just looking for a beating. Only a few of the White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples had a grave expression on their faces as they watched the situation unfold. They thought to themselves, Duan Lingtian is still as confident as before. Is it possible he's really confident he can defeat Lord Sanctum Leader? Of course, although they thought so, they did not dare to say it out loud. If they said it out loud, they would definitely be drowned in the saliva of the other White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples. Just as Lu Qing's Saint Qi surged, and his figure flickered as he prepared to make his move. You're too slow. A slightly impatient voice rang out. It was Duan Lingtian frowning as he spoke to Lu Qing. This further enraged Lu Qing. Lu Qing was so enraged that his Saint Qi surged like an erupting volcano, just as Lu Qing's body trembled violently because of Duan Lingtian, and he was about to make his move again. Sanctum Leader Lu, since you're not going to make a move, I'll make a move first. Duan Lingtian's impatient voice rang out again. Almost at the same time, Duan Lingtian's right hand reached out like a ghost. A dazzling golden light erupted in an instant. It was the vast Saint Qi that swept out from his body. To be more precise, it was the Sun Saint Origin. The Sun Saint Origin swept out from Duan Lingtian's right hand and transformed into a gigantic palm in just a blink of an eye. When Duan Lingtian's right hand transformed into a claw, the gigantic palm formed from the Sun Saint Origin also transformed into a gigantic claw and grabbed at Lu Qing, the Sanctum Leader of White Tiger Sanctum. Boom! Rumble! It was as though a five-fingered mountain had closed in on Lu Qing in an attempt to suppress him. Duan Lingtian's attack only contained his Saint Origin. He did not use any martial tactics, divine abilities, or saint weapons. However, his attack was so fast that it caught Lu Qing before he could do anything. When the gigantic claw grabbed Lu Qing, the domineering Sun Saint Origin swept out and crushed Lu Qing's Saint Origin mercilessly. Although Duan Lingtian was only at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage, the Sun Saint Origin in his body could not be compared to the Saint Origin of an ordinary powerhouse at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage. His Sun Saint origin was extremely close to the Saint origin of a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. With such a powerful force, it could easily crush the Saint origin of a powerhouse at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Roar! Under the watchful eyes of the others, Lu Qing, the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, who was immobilized by the gigantic claw, let out a bestial roar. His face was flushed red as his saint origin surged. It was obvious he had used all his strength. However, he could not escape being crushed in the end. How's this possible? Chapter 2174. Duan Lingtian made his move. He extended his right hand, and a gigantic hand appeared. It was as though it could grab the sun, moon, and stars. Lu Qing, the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, was restrained by Duan Lingtian before he could even make a move. He did not even have the strength to fight back. The group of White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples present on the scene were shocked when they saw this. An expression of disbelief could be seen on their faces. Prior to this, Lu Qing, the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, was the epitome of strength in the eyes of the White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples. However, today they witnessed it with their own eyes. Lu Qing did not even have the chance to make a move in front of a true disciple of the Zoroastrianism. When did the true disciple of the Zoroastrianism become so freakish? Whoosh! Under the watchful eyes of the others, the gigantic hand that was grabbing Lu Qing loosened its grip as Lu Qing continued to struggle. As soon as Duan Lingtian loosened his clenched right fist, the gigantic hand formed from his Sun Saint origin followed suit and loosened its fist as well. Naturally, this was done intentionally by Duan Lingtian. After Lu Qing broke free from the gigantic hand's grip, he felt as though he was a fish swimming in the vast sea and a bird flying in the vast sky. At this moment, he could not help but feel a sense of joy at surviving a calamity in the depths of his heart. Naturally, after feeling joyful, he was terrified. He was terrified of Duan Lingtian's strength. Whoosh! At this moment, before Lu Qing could regain his senses, Duan Lingtian raised his right hand and pressed it down. At this moment, the gigantic hand in front of Lu Qing leaped up and landed on top of Lu Qing's head. When Duan Lingtian pressed his right hand down, the gigantic hand that was hovering above Lu Qing's head descended as well. It was as though Mount Tai was pressing down on Lu Qing. Bang! A loud noise reverberated in the air. Lu Qing, who did not have time to react, was slapped down by the gigantic hand. It was as though he was being pressed down by the five-finger mountain. After a few moments, boom! Rumble! A series of earth-shattering noises reverberated in the air. The White Tiger Sanctum's estate shook violently. The gigantic hand formed by Duan Lingtian's Sun Saint origin pressed down on Lu Qing, the sanctum leader of the White Tiger Sanctum. It smashed him into the ground, crushing him into the earth. Of course, Yang Kai did not kill him. When he pressed Lu Qing into the ground, the Sun Saint Chi condensed into a giant hand dissipated with a single thought. However, even so, Lu Qing, who was not seriously injured, was still covered in dust. Being forcefully pressed onto the ground, his entire body was embedded into the ground. How could he not be dejected? To the White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples, all of this happened in the blink of an eye. In just a blink of an eye, the sanctum leader of their White Tiger Sanctum was knocked to the ground by a true disciple. Not only that, but he was also pressed into the ground as though he had turned into a human specimen. While the group of White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples were dumbfounded, a look of disbelief appeared on their faces. Sanctum leader Lu, I'm sorry for the offense. Duan Lingtian glanced at Lu Qing, the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, who had just gotten up from the ground. He did not care about Lu Qing's grave expression as he said these words and left. Currently, Yang Kai did not feel any sense of accomplishment when he defeated someone at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage, even if his opponent was the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, a golden flame elder of Zoroastrianism. If it was not for the people from White Tiger Sanctum stopping him, he would not have made a move at all. After Duan Lingtian left, the people from White Tiger Sanctum, including sanctum leader Lu Qing, no longer dared to stop him. It's only been a few years, but Duan Lingtian has become so strong. After Duan Lingtian left, Lu Qing's face turned pale. At the same time, he was reminded of something, and his eyes widened. Could it be that the news from the city of Sin is true? Did Duan Lingtian really kill Siekong Sun, the Golden Lion King, one of the four great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism? Previously, Lu Qing had heard the news of Duan Lingtian killing Siekong Sun. However, like most people, he did not believe it. He thought it was just a fantasy story. However, when he recalled the scene earlier, he began to believe it. Earlier, when Duan Lingtian made his move, he felt as though a gigantic mountain was pressing down on him, causing him to feel suffocated. The gigantic hand formed by Duan Lingtian's saint origin, in particular, seemed to contain the might of heaven and earth. No matter how hard Lu Qing tried, he could not break free from it at all. Even an ordinary powerhouse at the sixth form of the Saint Celestial stage wouldn't be able to form such a gigantic hand with just his saint origin. I feel like he's at the peak of the sixth or seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage. The moment he thought of this, Lu Qing's eyes were filled with shock. To grow to such an extent in just a few years, what kind of fortuitous encounter did that Duan Lingtian encounter? For a moment, in the depths of Lu Qing's eyes, besides shock and disbelief, there was also a glimmer of envy and jealousy. In his opinion, if it wasn't for his fortuitous encounter, Duan Lingtian definitely wouldn't have been able to possess such terrifying strength in just a few short years. When Lu Qing sensed the few elders from the White Tiger Sanctum, who had regained their senses looking at him, his face turned green and white. He did not even greet them before he left like a gust of wind. He had completely lost his face as the sanctum leader of the White Tiger Sanctum today. If he had known this would happen, he would have pretended to be in closed-door cultivation and allowed Duan Lingtian to pass by. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. The few elders from the White Tiger Sanctum who regained their senses first were all Silver Flame elders. They looked at each other and smiled wryly when they saw their sanctum leader had left without saying a word. I can't believe Duan Lingtian has grown to such an extent in just 3 to 4 years. How shocking. One of the Silver Flame elders from the White Tiger Sanctum sighed emotionally. That's right. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. Lord Sanctum leader of our White Tiger Sanctum is like a 3-year-old child in front of him. Even an ordinary powerhouse at the sixth form of the Saint Celestial stage wouldn't be able to defeat Lord Sanctum leader so easily, right? It's very likely that Duan Lingtian has already broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I really wouldn't dare to believe that he could have such achievements in such a short time. 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage? Doesn't that mean the news about Duan Lingtian killing Siekong Sun, the Golden Lion King of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, is true? Based on the current situation, it's possible that it's true. Initially, the few Silver Flame elders from the White Tiger Sanctum were amazed by Duan Lingtian's strength. After a while, the group of White Tiger Sanctum's Bronze Flame elders and disciples from the White Tiger Sanctum joined in the discussion when they were shocked by Duan Lingtian's strength. In the end, they confirmed one thing. Their Zoroastrianism's prodigious disciple, Duan Lingtian, had most likely killed Siekong Sun, the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 great Karmapa of the Zhuangzi Buddhism. Apart from being the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 great Karmapa of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, and a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, Siekong Sun is ranked 18th on the Supreme Saint ranking. If senior brother Duan Lingtian has killed him, doesn't that mean senior brother Duan Lingtian has replaced Siekong Sun and is ranked 18th on the Supreme Saint ranking? One of the White Tiger Sanctum's disciples muttered to himself. His eyes were as bright as the stars in the night sky. Based on the time, the Supreme Saint ranking should be out soon. I think it'll spread to the Western region and the Zoroastrianism in a few days. Another White Tiger Sanctum's disciple chimed in. However, the group of White Tiger Sanctum's elders and disciples were unaware of this. With the Central region as the center, the new Supreme Saint ranking began to spread in all directions. Those who did not believe Duan Ling Tian had killed Siekong Sun, the Golden Lion King of Black Kshetra sect, widened their eyes when they saw the person who was ranked 18th on the Supreme Saint ranking. They remained silent for a long time. They could only feel their faces burning as they faced the Supreme Saint ranking. It was as if they had been slapped in the face. As it turned out, Duan Ling Tian, a disciple from the Zoroastrianism Heaven sect, had really killed Siekong Sun, the Golden Lion King, one of the four great Karmapa of the Zhuangzi Buddhism. They could choose not to believe the rumors, but they had no choice but to believe the Supreme Saint ranking. Saint Land, it's been a long time. In the faraway western region's base of Zoroastrianism, Duan Ling Tian had entered the Saint Land of Zoroastrianism after leaving the White Tiger Sanctum. After arriving near the Saint Island, Duan Ling Tian did not enter the Saint Island, nor did he return to his residence outside the Saint Island. Instead, he soared into the air and passed through the clouds before he arrived near a group of floating islands. Duan Ling Tian continued to rise into the sky until he arrived at the highest point of the floating island, before he finally came to a halt. Duan Ling Tian has returned, because I've heard about the sect leader's announcement. Duan Ling Tian stood in the air and looked at the highest floating island in front of him. He said calmly, "I've come to look for you because I hope you'll keep your promise and swear on the lightning penalty oath." From the beginning until the end, Duan Ling Tian's tone was calm. It was as though he did not need to bow to the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. In fact, this was indeed the case. Duan Ling Tian? He's back. Chapter 2175. When the patrolling elder found out the person who had come was Duan Ling Tian, the true disciple of the Zoroastrianism, he did not show himself. Instead, he turned around and continued his patrol. He knew about the announcement made by the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism. However, he did not expect Duan Ling Tian to return so soon. I wonder how strong Duan Ling Tian has become after so many years, the patrolling elder thought to himself as he left. However, I'm definitely no match for him. After all, he managed to kill Siezong, the son of the Golden Lion King, the leader of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, 3 years ago. Currently, I'm only slightly stronger than Siezong at that time. Regarding this, the patrolling elder was well aware of his own capabilities. Although he was a silver flame elder in the Zoroastrianism, he was only an ordinary silver flame elder. His cultivation base was only at the 3rd form of the Saint Celestial stage. Perhaps, he might be comparable to Duan Ling Tian from 3 years ago. However, he was certain the gap between him and Siezong was huge. Duan Ling Tian's voice clearly reached the floating island, and the vast mansion on the floating island where Tang Xian, the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism, cultivated. At this moment, the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism was not the only one who cultivated. Duan Ling Tian? He's back. Gan Ru Yen, who was in a courtyard in the vast mansion, trembled when she heard Duan Ling Tian's voice. A shocked expression appeared on her face. She had heard about the announcement made by the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism. However, she did not expect Duan Ling Tian to return so soon. It had only been 3 days since the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism made the announcement, right? However, what she did not know was that Duan Ling Tian had already known about this when this announcement was made about Zoroastrianism. This was because Duan Ling Tian had been hiding outside the Zoroastrianism encampment, constantly keeping an eye on Zoroastrianism. He had endured for 3 days. To him, each day felt like a year. The reason why he endured it was because he was worried that if he returned to Zoroastrianism too quickly, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism would think that the Devil Seal tablet was with him. "Young master," a low cry sounded. A woman who looked exactly like Gan Ru Yen ran out from a room in the courtyard. Once she appeared, everything around her seemed to be overshadowed. The woman was none other than Kerr, who had just put her daughter to sleep. She had just coaxed her daughter to sleep when the voice that had haunted her for many years entered her ears. She wanted to let her know that her young master had returned to Zoroastrianism. "Yuyan, you mustn't act rashly. If you reveal that he's your man, Lord Sect Leader won't let him go." Gan Ru Yan's expression tensed up when she saw her younger sister rushing out of the room. She rushed to Kuer's side like a gust of wind, and reminded her with a solemn expression on her face. Sister, I know. Kuer nodded. That was her man. She regarded her man's life as more important than her own. How could she act rashly, and do anything that would harm him? She missed him so much that she could not wait to rush out and reunite with him. However, when she thought about the consequences, she suppressed her urge to do so. Kuer's face was covered in tears. They were tears of excitement. Young master, do you know that Kuer is here? Don't blame Kuer. It's not that Kuer doesn't want to see you, but she can't see you. At the very least, she can't see you for the time being. At this moment, Kuer felt as though a knife was being twisted in her heart. As the saying went, husband and wife were connected by heart. Duan Lingtian's heart skipped a beat. However, he did not know why. After a while, he regained his senses and waited for the sect leader of Zoroastrianism to come out. However, before Duan Lingtian could wait for the sect leader of Zoroastrianism to come out, 3 uninvited guests appeared. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of wind whistling could be heard as though 3 gusts of wind had blown past. Then, 3 figures appeared near Duan Lingtian. After revealing themselves, the 3 ghost-like figures also revealed their true appearances. One of them was an old man dressed in green, the other was a young man dressed in purple, and the last one was a beautiful woman dressed in red. The old man had a head of white hair, and he looked like an immortal. The young man was handsome and elegant, giving people a feeling of being bathed in the spring breeze. The beautiful woman was beautiful. Her graceful figure and beautiful face were enough to make one's imagination run wild. Guardian Qinghua. When the 3 of them appeared, Duan Lingtian's gaze instantly landed on the old man in green, who had a sage-like demeanor. He took the initiative to greet him. In the past, he had met this old man once. At that time, the old man wanted to take him as his disciple, but he had rejected him. Due to this reason, he knew the old man was one of the 3 guardians of Zoroastrianism, Guardian Qinghua. The 3 guardians of Zoroastrianism are also known as the 3 guardians of wind, fire, and cloud. They're Zifeng, Qinghua, and Hongyin. I think the young man dressed in purple, and the beautiful woman dressed in red next to Guardian Qinghua are Guardian Zifeng and Guardian Hongyin. As Duan Lingtian greeted Qinghua, he could not help but speculate inwardly. Among the 3 guardians of Zoroastrianism, the strongest one is Guardian Zifeng. It's said that his cultivation base has already broken through to the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. He's one of the pillars of Zoroastrianism. The second one is Guardian Qinghua. He's also Gan Ruyan's master. His cultivation base is at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. He's considered one of the strongest in the Dao Martial Saint land. He's ranked in the top 20 on the Supreme Saint ranking. Finally, there's Guardian Hongyin. Although she's a woman, her cultivation base is at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. She's one of the few female powerhouses at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land. Duan Lingtian had heard about the 3 guardians of Zoroastrianism a few years ago. Due to this reason, he instantly recognized Zifeng and Hongyin, the 2 guardians of Zoroastrianism, whom he had not met before today. If it was in the past, he might feel a little restrained when facing the 3 guardians of Zoroastrianism. However, at this moment, he did not feel any restraint at all. After all, with his current strength, he was not afraid of them at all if they were to fight with their lives on the line. Duan Lingtian, you're finally willing to come back. Qinghua looked at Duan Lingtian intently. Duan Lingtian smiled awkwardly before he looked at the 2 people standing next to Qinghua. If I'm not mistaken, both of you must be Guardian Zifeng and Guardian Hongyin, right? Duan Lingtian spoke casually. It was as though he was speaking to the 2 guardians of Zoroastrianism as equals. With his current strength, he was indeed qualified to speak to the guardians of Zoroastrianism as equals. Qinghua's expression changed drastically when he heard Duan Lingtian's casual words. He could overlook Duan Lingtian's rudeness, but it did not mean the other 2 guardians could do the same. As expected, both Guardian Zifeng and Guardian Hongyun's expressions darkened when they heard Duan Lingtian's rudeness. Protector Hongyun in particular was so gloomy that it seemed like water could drip from her face. As the guardians of Zoroastrianism, their positions in Zoroastrianism were second only to the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. Usually, even the two vice-sect leaders of Zoroastrianism would treat them with respect. Not to mention the other Golden Flame Elders, Silver Flame Elders, and even Bronze Flame Elders. However, today, a true disciple of Zoroastrianism had spoken to them so casually without any respect. It was as though he was not facing the guardians of Zoroastrianism, but a true disciple like him. How could the two guardians of Zoroastrianism, who were usually high and mighty, not be angry? How dare you? Guardian Hong Yun shouted suddenly. Her expression darkened as she glared at Duan Lingtian. She asked coldly, "You're Duan Lingtian, right? Do you know who you're talking to?" Guardian Hong Yun's voice became colder as she spoke. It was as though her voice came from an extremely cold ice cave. "How dare you act so arrogantly and disrespect your elders, just because of your innate talent? Didn't your sectless master teach you manners?" Without waiting for Duan Lingtian's reply, Guardian Hong Yun spoke again. Her voice was as cold as before. Guardian Zifeng looked at Duan Lingtian coldly. From the beginning until the end, he did not say anything. This was because Guardian Hong Yun had already said what he wanted to say. "Duan Lingtian, hurry up and apologize to the two guardians." Qinghua reminded Duan Lingtian, through voice transmission when he recalled his direct disciple, Gan Ruyen, had asked him to take care of Duan Lingtian. However, Duan Lingtian ignored Qinghua's voice transmission. He continued to look at Guardian Hong Yun fearlessly. "Did I get the wrong person? You're not Guardian Hong Yun?" Duan Lingtian's tone was as calm as before. It was as though he did not notice Guardian Hong Yun's anger. He was like a hothead. "You." Qinghua's expression changed drastically. He did not expect Duan Lingtian would be so stubborn after he heard his voice transmission. He decided to ignore Duan Lingtian. "Ru Yen, it's not that I've let you down, but Duan Lingtian is too arrogant. It's not a bad thing to let him suffer today." In Qinghua's opinion, Duan Lingtian was different. It was as though Duan Lingtian was a completely different person compared to the Duan Lingtian in the past. In the past, although Duan Lingtian was also arrogant and unruly, he was definitely not as arrogant and conceited as he was now. He knew no matter how angry Guardian Hong Yun was, she would not kill Duan Lingtian and ruin the plan of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. Chapter 2176. Ever since I, Hong Yun, have broken through to the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage and became a guardian of Zoroastrianism, this is my first time seeing such an arrogant and conceited disciple of Zoroastrianism like you. Guardian Hong Yun's expression darkened when she saw Duan Lingtian had no intention of admitting his mistake. Her voice turned colder as well. Her voice was so cold it seemed as though it could freeze 10,000 miles. "I won't kill you today out of respect for the sect leader. However, I'll teach you how to behave and how to respect your elders." Protector Hong Yun no longer held back her anger as she spoke. The moment her words left her mouth, she did not seem to have made any movements, but an invisible energy swept out from her body. It was as though it had transformed into a roaring dragon that charged towards Duan Lingtian. The invisible energy was vast and majestic. Although it was not as powerful as Hong Yun's full strength, it was enough to send an ordinary cultivator below the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage flying if he was caught off guard. Even a cultivator at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage would be injured if he was not prepared. The Saint origin in Hong Yun's body roared and transformed into an invisible energy that surged out. She seemed to have seen Duan Lingtian being sent flying by her attack. At this moment, even Zifeng and Qinghua did not think it would be difficult for Duan Lingtian to withstand Hong Yun's attack. However, would the outcome be as they had expected? Swoosh! The invisible energy that surged out of Guardian Hong Yun's body was only a few feet away from Duan Lingtian. It was about to hit Duan Lingtian. All of a sudden, "Humph!" Duan Lingtian snorted coldly. Similarly, he did not make any move, but an invisible energy surged out of his body and collided with the invisible energy that surged out of Guardian Hong Yun's body. Boom! Along with a loud bang, A deafening sound of air exploding reverberated in the air. Waves of majestic airwaves swept out and set off gusts of strong wind, causing Duanling Tian and Hong Yun's robes to flutter noisily. The red-cloaked guardian stood in place, not moving an inch. Duanling Tian was the same. In an instant, a strong smell of gunpowder filled the air. Silence. The scene was deathly silent. How is this possible? When Xinghua regained his senses, he could not help but reveal a shocked expression. He would never have thought that Duanling Tian was actually able to neutralize the attack of Hong Yun Protector. One had to know that this wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Perhaps only a powerhouse at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage, or above, would be able to do this. Even Protector Zifeng couldn't help but reveal some surprise in his eyes. Protector Qing Hua was not the only one who was shocked by the scene before him. Even he himself was shocked. Of course, the person who was most shocked was neither Qing Hua nor Zifeng. Instead, it was Protector Hong Yun. I underestimated you. Protector Hong Yun sucked in a breath of cold air. She stared at Duanling Tian and said in a deep voice, "No wonder you are so arrogant. So you have something to rely on." She paused for a moment when she reached the end of her sentence. After a while, Protector Hong Yun's words suddenly changed. "However, I'll let you know that you can't be so arrogant and disrespectful just because you have some strength." As soon as Hong Yun finished speaking, her red robe fluttered in the air. Whoosh! She seemed to have transformed into a red bolt of lightning as she charged toward Duanling Tian. She looked as though she would not let this matter rest until she taught him a lesson. As a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, although Hong Yun did not unleash her full strength when she attacked, it still pressured Duanling Tian. "Protector Hong Yun, unleash your full strength." As Hong Yun charged toward Duanling Tian reminded her to unleash her full strength. How arrogant! Hong Yun, who was halfway to Duanling Tian, was furious when she heard Duanling Tian's words. A layer of frost appeared on her beautiful face. At the same time that her delicate body trembled slightly from anger, waves of increasingly majestic and vast aura also spread out from her body. It was like a stormy sea, wave after wave, as if it would never stop. Xinghua shook his head. Although Duanling Tian had managed to disperse the invisible energy that swept out from Protector Hong Yun's body, Xinghua did not think Duanling Tian was a match for Protector Hong Yun. Protector Hong Yun was his junior sister, so he knew very well how strong she was. Hong Yun, the protector of Zoroastrianism, was a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. She was ranked 16th on the Supreme Saint ranking. Of course, Hong Yun's ranking on the Supreme Saint leaderboard had not been so high 3 years ago. 3 years ago, many powerhouses at or above the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage had died in the pseudo-realm left behind by the 3 eminent devils. Many of them were even stronger than Hong Yun. Due to this reason, the Supreme Saint ranking was reshuffled. Many people who were originally at the bottom of the ranking jumped up a few ranks. It was the same for Hong Yun. Elementary devouring tactic. Duanling Tian did not continue to warn Hong Yun. Instead, he cast his divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, when he saw Hong Yun did not intend to unleash her full strength even after hearing his warning. As soon as the elementary devouring tactic was cast, it caused ripples to appear in the space where Duanling Tian was standing. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In a flash of lightning, the wave-like ripples twisted into a turbulent whirlpool. Waves of devouring force swept out from within, as though it could devour everything. In just a blink of an eye, all the heaven and earth spirit energy in the area around Duanling Tian was devoured by Duanling Tian. At the same time, the Sun Saint origin in Duanling Tian's body soared until it reached its limit before it stopped. Whoosh! Even so, the Sun Saint origin in his body still emitted a powerful aura. Hong Yun's expression changed when she sensed the powerful aura. Her eyes widened. 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage? She could clearly sense it. After Duanling Tian cast his assist-type divine ability, the Saint origin in his body had risen to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Moreover, It was not as simple as an ordinary powerhouse at the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage. Although Duan Lingtian's saint origin was not as strong as a powerhouse at the eighth form of the Saint Celestial stage, it was not much weaker. At the very least, before she cast her assist-type divine ability, her saint origin was not as strong as Duan Lingtian's saint origin. Good. Very good. At this moment, Hong Yun no longer said anything about Duan Lingtian's arrogance. After all, based on the strength Duan Lingtian had displayed so far, he was qualified to speak to them as equals. In this case, Duan Lingtian's previous actions could not be considered as arrogant and conceited. Disrespectful? Hong Yun, and the other two guardians of the Zoroastrianism, only had a higher status compared to Duan Lingtian. The reason they addressed themselves as seniors was because they were stronger than Duan Lingtian. Now that Duan Lingtian had displayed strength that was not inferior to theirs, it was naturally inappropriate for them to address themselves as seniors. Disrespectful? Based on the strength Duan Lingtian had displayed so far, they did not think he was disrespectful. After all, he had treated them as equals from the beginning until the end. The reason why they thought Duan Lingtian was disrespectful was because Duan Lingtian was far weaker than them. However, even so, after seeing Duan Lingtian's powerful strength, Hong Yun had no intention of backing down. In fact, she was even a little excited. Hua! In an instant, Hong Yun did not dare to be careless. She immediately cast her assist-type divine ability and increased her saint origin chi. In the end, her saint origin chi was no weaker than Duan Lingtian's. How is this possible? Qinghua and Zifeng came back to their senses and looked at each other. They could see the horror and disbelief in each other's eyes. What Protector Hong Yun could discover, they could also discover. Because of this, they were also shocked by Duan Lingtian's strength. Now it seems that the Golden Lion King Siakong Sun, one of the four great kings of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, might really be killed by him. Qinghua said to Zifeng through voice transmission, "If he really killed Siakong Sun with 3 strikes, I'm afraid Hong Yun is no match for him." Zifeng replied through voice transmission with a solemn expression on his face. "That's right." Qinghua smiled wryly, while Protector Qinghua and Protector Zifeng were communicating via voice transmission. Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian and Hong Yun had already begun to fight. In the beginning, both of them did not use any martial tactics or offensive or defensive divine abilities. They only used their strength to fight. Boom, 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 boom. Two forces that were comparable to a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage collided again and again, causing the void to tremble as a gust of wind swept out. It was earth-shattering. After a series of exchanges, both of them were evenly matched. How's this possible? At some point, the patrolling elder who had left earlier had returned. He had only returned when he heard the commotion. Who would have thought he would witness an unforgettable scene as soon as he returned? Duan Lingtian, a true disciple of the Zoroastrianism sect, was fighting Hong Yun, one of the 3 guardians of the Zoroastrianism sect. They were evenly matched. Guardian Hong Yun is a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. She's ranked 16th on the Supreme Saint ranking. Duan Lingtian is actually evenly matched with her? At this moment, the patrolling elder could not help but wonder if he was dreaming. However, the reality before his eyes seemed to be telling him that this was not a dream. Everything in front of him was not a dream. It was real. Is it true that Duan Lingtian killed Siakong Sun, the Golden Lion King of the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect? Chapter 2177. After a few rounds of probing, Hong Yun took out her weapon. It was a crimson whip. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The long whip danced in the air like a ferocious crimson snake. It gave off an inexplicable pressure. Hong Yun channeled the saint origin in her body into the red whip in her hand. Whoosh! A terrifying aura surged out of the red whip. It was as though the crimson snake was unleashing its might. It was obvious the whip in Hong Yun's hand was not an ordinary saint weapon. 1,000 inscription saint weapon? Duan Lingtian could tell it was 1,000 inscription saint weapon when he sensed the terrifying aura from the long whip in Hong Yun's hand. At the same time, a sword appeared in his hand as well. Naturally, this sword was not the Jasper Celestial sword. It was a 1,000 Inscriptions Saint sword. He had obtained the 1,000 Inscriptions Saint sword from the Ground Axe Alliance when he had just arrived in Sin City 3 years ago. Coincidentally, he had bumped into the 1,000 Inscriptions Saint sword. If he had come to Sin City at any other time, even if it was just 15 minutes later, he would not have encountered such a good thing. It could be said that he was fated to obtain this 1,000 Inscriptions Saint sword. Moreover, when Duan Ling Tian first obtained the 1,000 Inscriptions Saint sword, he had to carefully hide it so no one would discover it. However, now that he had obtained it, he was qualified to possess it. The qualifications referred to the strength that allowed him to protect the 1,000 Inscriptions Saint sword. With Duan Lingtian's current strength, those who were weaker than him would not dare to provoke him, let alone snatch the 1,000 Inscriptions Saint sword from him. Those who were stronger than him had a 1,000 Inscriptions Saint weapon. Naturally, they would not covet the 1,000 Inscriptions Saint sword in his hand. When the 1,000 Inscriptions Saint sword appeared in Duan Lingtian's hand, Duan Lingtian's aura changed drastically. It was as though he was a completely different person. With this sword in hand, the world was mine. There was nothing more than this. The moment he took out the 1,000 Inscriptions sacred sword, Duan Lingtian poured the boundless saint force of the sun into the 1,000 Inscriptions sacred sword without reservation. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sound of sword whistling could be heard as the tip of the 1,000 Inscriptions Saint sword emitted dazzling sword rays that looked extremely dazzling. Duan Lingtian, take this. Guardian Hong Yun cried out in a delicate voice. She held the long whip in her hand as she charged towards Duan Lingtian in an imposing manner. The long whip in her hand seemed to have come alive at this moment. It looked more and more like a red-crimson drill snake. Protector Hong Yun now regarded Duan Lingtian as her greatest enemy. She no longer dared to regard Duan Lingtian as a true disciple of Zoroastrianism. For this reason, she did not hold back at all when she made her move. It was as though she would not stop until she defeated Duan Lingtian. Whoosh! Protector Hong Yun moved like the wind. Because of her red robe, she looked like a fiery red meteor that lit up the entire sky. Buzz! As for the long whip in her hand, it was like a red snake that had been lying dormant for a long time. It was impossible to guard against it. It's time to end this. Duan Lingtian thought to himself as he narrowed his eyes when he saw Protector Hong Yun charging towards him with the long whip in her hand. In the next moment, another wave of powerful aura surged out of Duan Lingtian's body. At this moment, Duan Lingtian seemed to have transformed into a sword with an imposing aura that shot into the sky. It was as though he could penetrate and slash through everything. Imperial sword technique. With just a thought, the 1,000 Inscriptions sacred sword in Duan Lingtian's hand flew out of his hand, as though it had been given life by Duan Lingtian. Swoosh! As soon as the 1,000 Inscriptions sacred sword in Duan Lingtian's hand disappeared, the sound of sword whistling in the air rang in the air. The sword ray appeared in front of Protector Hong Yun before she could reach Duan Lingtian. To be more precise, it was close to Hong Yun's hand that was holding the long whip. Sword chi surged as it shot out. Waves of extremely sharp aura shocked Protector Hong Yun so much that her body suddenly trembled. When she regained her senses, she discovered it was too late for her to block the 1,000 Inscriptions sacred sword that was moving at a speed that was beyond the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. In the blink of an eye, the Red Protector seemed to see the scene of his hand that was holding the long whip being crippled. Watch out! Zifeng and Qinghua's expressions changed when they regained their senses. They immediately rushed toward Protector Hong Yun in an attempt to save her. Unfortunately, they were too late. Even Protector Zifeng could not save Protector Hong Yun in time. Be merciful when possible. At this critical moment, a majestic voice rang in the air, as though it came from all directions. As soon as the voice rang in the air, both Protector Zifeng and Protector Qing Xian were pleasantly surprised. It was as if they had found a life-saving straw in an instant. Naturally, it was not the straw that saved them. Clang! A deafening sound reverberated in the air as a translucent wall appeared between Protector Hong Yun and the 1,000 Inscriptions sacred sword. It was this wall that blocked the Thousand Inscriptions sacred sword. When the Thousand Inscriptions sacred sword was about to run out of energy, the wall collapsed. At this moment, the Thousand Inscriptions sacred sword no longer posed a threat to Protector Hong Yin. For this reason, Duan Lingtian recalled the Thousand Inscriptions sacred sword with just a thought. He did not allow it to continue attacking Protector Hong Yin, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. At the same time, Duan Lingtian seemed to have sensed something as he looked at the sky nearby. Over there, a figure gradually appeared. When the figure appeared, he revealed his true appearance. He was a tall and burly middle-aged man. He wore a long white robe that was embroidered with fiery red flames. His attire is similar to the attire of the elders and disciples of Zoroastrianism. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Naturally, it was only similar. This was because he noticed that the flames embroidered on the white robe of the middle-aged man was something he had never seen before in Zoroastrianism. It was as though it was one of a kind. Upon closer inspection, he discovered that the flames on the white robe were similar to the flames. Flames were embroidered on his robe. From top to bottom, they seemed to form a long divine dragon that revolved around his body. It was as if a true dragon was protecting him. Moreover, although the man was tall and burly, his appearance was very proper. He did not look boorish at all. Regardless of whether it was her figure or her face, every part was just right, almost perfect. The space between his brows was filled with a sense of majesty, as if it could turn all living things upside down and make all living things submit to him. At this moment, Duan Lingtian also guessed the other party's identity. The leader of Zoroastrianism, Tang Xian. Are you finally willing to come out? Duan Lingtian stared at Tang Xian as he muttered to himself. Back when he was testing the waters with Protector Hong Yun, and they were evenly matched, Protector Hong Yun said. Hua Lao told him that there was a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage lurking in the dark, spying on him. At that time, he knew who that person was. In the Zoroastrianism, only sect leader Tang Xian was at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage. There was no need for him to guess. In order to lure the other party out, Guardian Hong Yun took out her Thousand Inscriptions Saint weapon and was about to fight him. He also took out his Thousand Inscriptions Saint sword and activated it with all his might. He also performed the sword-wielding technique that was given to him by the 3rd stage of the Sovereign Heart sword. He flew out with his sword, as if he was going to cripple Hong Yun. He had done this to force Tang Xian, who was hiding in the dark, to make a move. From the beginning until the end, although Guardian Hong Yin had been rude to him, he knew it was only natural. After all, Guardian Hong Yin did not know his current strength. Thinking about it, if he were Protector Hong Yin, perhaps he would be even more impolite. For this reason, he did not intend to cripple Guardian Hong Yin. He was prepared to recall the Thousand Inscriptions Saint sword at any time. He would not allow the Thousand Inscriptions Saint sword to cripple Guardian Hong Yin. As it turned out, his plan worked. Tang Xian, the leader of Zoroastrianism, no longer hid in the dark. He walked out and appeared in front of Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian. When Duan Lingtian stared at Tang Xian was also looking at him. Aren't you worried that if I didn't make a move, you wouldn't be able to retrieve your sword in time? After all, your sword's speed was not slow at all. However, I'm curious. How did you find out I was hiding in the dark? Tang Xian asked again when he reached the end of his sentence. Tang Xian's words entered Duan Lingtian's ears, shocking Duan Lingtian. He saw through me. Duan Lingtian's heart skipped a beat. He felt naked in front of Tang Xian. It was as though there were no secrets in front of Tang Xian. At the same time, Protector Zifeng, Protector Qing Hua, and the surviving Protector Hong Yin were stunned when they heard Tang Xian's words. I didn't expect you to see through me, sect leader. However, even if you didn't make a move earlier, nothing would have happened to Guardian Hong Yin. As for how I found out you were hiding in the dark, it was just a coincidence. Duan Lingtian replied. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, the 3 great guardians of Zoroastrianism were enlightened. As it turned out, Duan Lingtian had only used his sword to force their sect leader to make a move. He did not intend to cripple anyone. You can control the sword as you please. Your attainments in the way of the sword are rarely seen in this world. Chapter 2178. Rarely seen in this world. This was Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. Evaluation of Duan Lingtian's attainment in the sword Dao. Duan Lingtian was not surprised by this. After all, he cultivated the supreme sword Dao mental cultivation method, the sovereign heart sword. It was a sword Dao ultimate technique that was superior to all other sword techniques in the mundane realm. Naturally, he was slightly surprised by Tang Xian's judgment. As expected of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, rarely seen in this world. At the same time, the three guardians of Zoroastrianism regained their senses. Their faces were filled with shock when they heard Tang Xian's words. They did not expect Duan Lingtian to say such words. They did not expect their sect leader of Zoroastrianism would use the words rarely seen in this world to praise Duan Lingtian's attainment in the sword Dao. It should be noted that the words rarely seen in this world meant something else. Rarely seen in this world meant that it was rare in this world. However, when they recalled Duan Lingtian's brief sword strike, Zifeng and Qinghua felt relieved. Let alone their sect leader. Even they had never seen anyone who had cultivated the sword-wielding technique to such an extent. As for Hong Yun, although she knew Duan Lingtian did not intend to cripple her hand that was holding the saint weapon, she could not help but shudder when she recalled the earlier scene. Fast. Too fast. The sword strike that was as swift as a ghost had arrived in front of her, before she could even react. By the time she regained her senses, it was already too late for her to block the attack. If the sect leader did not make a move, and if Duan Lingtian did not intend to cripple her hand would have been in grave danger. Duan Lingtian, it seems like the rumors are true. With the strength you displayed earlier in your attainment in the sword Dao, it won't be difficult for you to kill the Golden Lion King, Siekong Sun, one of the four great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism. Tang Xian looked at Duan Lingtian, as though Duan Lingtian was a peerless treasure. In fact, in his eyes, Duan Lingtian was indeed a peerless treasure. After all, Duan Lingtian was much stronger than Hong Yun from Zoroastrianism. This could be seen from the battle earlier. If it was a battle to the death, Hong Yun would have died in less than 10 moves. Yes, I killed Siekong Sun. Duan Lingtian nodded. You really killed Siekong Sun in 3 moves? Hong Yun could not help but ask when Duan Lingtian admitted that he had killed Siekong Sun. Her voice was filled with eagerness, as though she wanted to know the answer to her question. Although Duan Lingtian's sword strike earlier had almost crippled one of her hands. However, that was because she was not prepared for Duan Lingtian's sword-wielding technique. Otherwise, she would not have been in such a sorry state. Naturally, although she was caught off guard, she was still aware that she was far from being a match for Duan Lingtian. She asked this question to confirm if Duan Lingtian had really killed Siekong Sun with 3 moves. If it was true, it meant Duan Lingtian had not used his full strength when they fought earlier. After all, although she was stronger than Siekong Sun, she was not much stronger. If I wanted to kill him from the beginning, 1 move would have been enough. Duan Lingtian replied as he glanced at Hong Yun indifferently. You're right, Guardian Hong Yun. The entire place fell silent immediately. Duan Lingtian's indifferent words reverberated in their ears, allowing them to deeply feel the strong confidence in Duan Lingtian's words. It was a confidence that was beyond doubt. He killed Siekong Sun with 1 move? At that moment, Protector Zifeng, Protector Qinghua, and Protector Hong Yun all realized the same thing. Duan Lingtian's strength was comparable to a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Among the 3 of them, only Zifeng was a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Guardian Zifeng, if you were to fight Duan Lingtian, would you be confident? Protector Hong Yun secretly took in a breath of cold air. She looked at Protector Zifeng and asked through voice transmission, if he's really able to kill Siekong Sun with 1 move, I'm no match for him. Zifeng pondered for a moment before he replied through voice transmission. It seems like he hid a lot of his strength when he fought me. Guardian Hong Yun smiled wryly. Little did she know that Duan Lingtian's true strength came from the Celestial Supreme Treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword in his possession. With Duan Lingtian's current strength, he was almost invincible against those below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, once he wielded the Jasper Celestial Sword. Good. Tang Xian, the sect leader of Fire Worship Sect, was the first one to regain his senses. He smiled as he looked at Duan Lingtian. After so many years, we finally have a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage in our Fire Worship Sect. After witnessing Duan Lingtian's strength, Zifeng, Qinghua, and Hong Yun no longer dared to underestimate Duan Lingtian. They could not help but feel excited when they heard Tang Xian's words. From today onward, Zoroastrianism would have a 4th powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, or above. This was extremely significant to Zoroastrianism. Most importantly, they realized the new powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, or above, was not as simple as a mere powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. From today onward, you, Duan Lingtian, are the 4th guardian of Zoroastrianism, Guardian Lingtian. Tang Xian looked at Duan Lingtian and solemnly announced in front of the other 3 guardians of Zoroastrianism. Me, the guardian of Zoroastrianism? Duan Lingtian was taken aback when he heard Tang Xian's sudden announcement. He was stunned. Congratulations, Guardian Lingtian. Congratulations, Guardian Lingtian. As soon as Tang Xian finished speaking, Duan Lingtian was still in a daze. Meanwhile, Zifeng, Qinghua, and Hong Yun congratulated Duan Lingtian from the bottom of their hearts. In this world where the strong were revered, strength was everything. Duan Lingtian's strength had also obtained their acknowledgement. Thank you, guardians. Duan Lingtian regained his senses and quickly thanked the 3 of them. At the same time, he felt as though he was in a dream. Did he really become a guardian of Zoroastrianism just like that? When he thought about the days when he had just joined Zoroastrianism, it felt like a lifetime ago. The 3 guardians smiled in response to Duan Lingtian's gratitude. Then, they tactfully bade farewell to Duan Lingtian and Tang Xian before they took their leave. When they left, they were filled with a myriad of emotions. They felt as though the world had gone crazy. Not long ago, they had thought that Duan Lingtian was just an ordinary true disciple of Zoroastrianism. However, in just a blink of an eye, he had become someone who was on par with them. He was now the 4th guardian of Zoroastrianism, Lingtian. This was especially true for Qinghua. He was one of the 3 guardians of Zoroastrianism who had interacted with Duan Lingtian a long time ago. To think that I even wanted to take him as my disciple. When Qinghua recalled his naive actions in the past, he felt a burning sensation on his old face. He wished he could dig a hole and hide in it right now. After the 3 guardians left, Tang Xian raised his hand and pricked his finger. Whoosh! As a drop of blood rose into the air, Tang Xian swore on the lightning penalty oath that he had promised to Duan Lingtian in the announcement he had made earlier. The lightning penalty oath was a promise that no one from Zoroastrianism would lay their hands on the super saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet, in Duan Lingtian's possession. This was also a promise he had made earlier. Boom! 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 9 claps of thunder resounded in the sky, bearing witness to Tang Xian's lightning penalty oath. Guardian Lingtian, with your current strength, you're fully qualified to possess the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet. However, since I've made a promise, I'll have to fulfill it. Tang Xian looked at Duan Lingtian with a smile on his face. Thank you, sect leader. Duan Lingtian quickly expressed his gratitude. Guardian Lingtian, weren't you curious earlier? How did I know you didn't really want to cripple Guardian Hong Yun? Tang Xian asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. He was indeed curious about this. However, he did not voice his doubts out loud. That's because not only did your sword not have any killing intent, but it also did not have any hostility. This means your battle with Guardian Hong Yun was more like a sparring session. Since it was a sparring session, it's only natural that you wouldn't cripple each other's limbs. Tang Xian explained with a smile. Upon hearing Tang Xian's words, Duan Lingtian finally understood. At the same time, he was shocked by how meticulous this sect leader of Zoroastrianism was. It seems like even though I've become a guardian of Zoroastrianism, I'll still have to come up with a plan if I want to rescue Kerr and our daughter. Otherwise, if Tang Xian finds out, not only will I be in danger, but Kerr and our daughter will also be in danger. Duan Lingtian became even more wary of Tang Xian when he saw how meticulous Tang Xian was. In his opinion, the only benefit of becoming a guardian of Zoroastrianism was that it would be much easier for him to move around in Zoroastrianism. What he was interested in was the many privileges a guardian of Zoroastrianism would have in Zoroastrianism. In Zoroastrianism, a guardian's position was extremely high. It was second only to the sect leader, and above the vice-sect leaders, Golden Flame Elders and Silver Flame Elders. Guardian Lingtian. Tang Xian's expression suddenly turned solemn as he said to Duan Lingtian, "In 3 days, I'll personally crown you in the central square of the Saint Island in front of all the elders and disciples in the Saint Land. At that time, everyone in the Zoroastrianism, the Western region, and the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land will know that there's a fourth guardian in Zoroastrianism. The guardian of Zoroastrianism is Duan Lingtian. He's also the #1 prodigy in Zoroastrianism, and the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land." When Tang Xian reached the end of his sentence, he gave Duan Lingtian a very high evaluation. The #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land. In fact, previously, there was only one #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land, in the Sectless Cultivator world. That person was Pei Si Hai, the direct disciple of the strongest person in the Dao Martial Saint Land, Nye Wu Tian. Chapter 2179. Naturally, only the sectless cultivators acknowledged Pei Si Hai as the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land. The sects in the upper province, including Zoroastrianism, Zhuangzi Buddhism, and the Heaven Divination sect, did not acknowledge Pei Si Hai as the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land. This was because there was no evidence to prove Pei Si Hai was younger than 100 years old. However, Duan Lingtian was different. Everyone knew Duan Lingtian's age. This was because Duan Lingtian came from the Debussyi subterranean. There were many legends about Duan Lingtian in the lower province. When they learned the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal tablet, had appeared in the lower province, many people from the major forces in the upper province and sectless cultivators in the upper province had left for the lower province. At the same time, they had also investigated Duan Lingtian, the owner of the Devil Seal tablet, including Duan Lingtian's age. Their investigation even traced back to the Mortal Continent and the 10 great dynasties at a remote corner of the Mortal Continent, and even the Darkstone Empire, Azure Forest Imperial Kingdom, Crimson Sky Kingdom, Swallow Mountain County, Aurora City, Fresh Breeze Town, and the Li Clan. Duan Lingtian was born in the Crimson Sky Kingdom. For this reason, it was easy to verify Duan Lingtian's age. Not even 50 years old. Duan Lingtian is not even 50 years old. Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, could not help but feel shocked when he saw Duan Lingtian, and recalled the information he had obtained from the people he had sent to the lower province. Pei Si Hai was not even 50 years old, but his strength was comparable to a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Put aside the fact that Pei Si Hai was not even 100 years old. Even if he was nothing in front of Duan Lingtian. Pei Si Hai, a sectless cultivator who was not even 100 years old, had reached the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage? Sorry, our Zoroastrianism's guardian, Duan Lingtian, is a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage below the age of 50. Being less than 100 years old, and being less than 50 years old, were two completely different concepts. Sect leader, you flatter me. When Duan Lingtian heard Pei Si Hai praising him as the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land, he could not help but feel excited, even though he had been through a lot. The #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint Land. This was not a title that anyone could obtain. Only the most outstanding person in the Dao Martial Saint Land was qualified to be given this unique title. Because of this, even though Duan Lingtian's heart had been tempered thousands of times along the way, when he heard the title given to him, by the hierarch of Zoroastrianism, it was difficult for him to maintain his composure. I'm not exaggerating. It's the truth, Tang Xian said with a smile. His eyes narrowed. The more he looked at Duan Lingtian, the more he liked him. Sect leader, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Duan Lingtian bade farewell to Tang Xian. After Tang Xian nodded in response, he descended from the sky and flew through the clouds toward the Saint Island. He did not forget the reason he returned to Zoroastrianism. He wanted to save Kerr and their daughter. Duan Lingtian was unaware that Kerr and their daughter were no longer in the enforcement hall on the Saint Island. Instead, they were in the cultivation place of Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. Usually, Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, would personally monitor them. Naturally, it was not strange that Duan Lingtian was unaware of this. Currently, there were only a handful of people in the fire worship sect who knew about this matter. Apart from the people involved, only the hall master of the enforcement hall and a few vice hall masters knew about this. It's a pity that the saint has been defiled by someone from the lower province. Once that person appears and learns about this, he'll definitely be furious. He might even vent his anger on me. The saint's past life doesn't seem to be as simple as that person's cousin. After Duan Lingtian left, Tang Xian muttered to himself. A hint of fear could be seen in his eyes. The person he was afraid of was the person he spoke of. If this didn't happen, I could have tried to introduce Duan Lingtian to that person. However, I can't even protect myself now, let alone introduce Duan Lingtian to that person. Tang Xian could not help but sigh when he thought of this. The fear in his eyes did not lessen at all. Tang Xian shook his head helplessly before he returned to his cultivation place. Fortunately, no one saw this. Otherwise, they would have been shocked. Who was this person who could make Tang Xian, who had broken through to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, so fearful? Earlier, when Duan Lingtian and Hong Yun were fighting, the commotion was loud. Even Gan Ru Yen, who was hiding in the residence of Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, heard the commotion clearly. There's no commotion? However, she discovered that there was no commotion at all. Young master, will he be all right? Kerr's beautiful face tensed up slightly. She was slightly worried. Kua had also heard the commotion from outside earlier. She vaguely guessed that it was most likely related to her young master. Hence, her heart was hanging in the air due to worry. Don't worry, Gan Ruyan comforted her. The fact that the sect leader has personally asked him to come back shows how important he is. Even so, I'm sure he'll be fine. Although Gan Ruyan said this, she secretly added another sentence in her heart. Naturally, this was under the premise that he did not reveal his identity. When the sect leader had found her and asked who her sister's man was, she had clearly sensed the anger in the sect leader's voice. If the sect leader found out that her sister's man was Duan Lingtian, even if Duan Lingtian did not die, he would at least be skinned alive, right? Yes. Naturally, Kerr was unaware of this. For this reason, she felt slightly relieved when Gan Ruyan comforted her. Of course, her desire to reunite with the man she had chosen for her entire life was as strong as ever. She was not the only one who wanted to be reunited with her man. She wanted to reunite with her family as well. This was what she had been dreaming of all these years. When Duan Lingtian descended from the sky and entered the Saint Island, news of him returning to the Zoroastrianism, swaggering into the White Tiger Sanctum, and easily defeating Lu Qing, the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, had spread from the White Tiger Sanctum to the 4 symbol sanctums. Whether it was the Azure Dragon Sanctum, the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, or the Black Turtle Sanctum, this news spread like wildfire. After a few years, Duan Lingtian has returned and easily defeated the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum. Is this for real? Why does this sound a little exaggerated? I think it's a little exaggerated as well. The sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum is a Golden Flame Elder of Zoroastrianism. Golden Flame Elders of Zoroastrianism are powerhouses at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage. If this is true, since Duan Lingtian can easily defeat a powerhouse at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage, does this mean his strength is at least at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage? Or even stronger? Heavens! What did senior brother Duan Lingtian go through in these few years? He actually possesses such terrifying strength. A commotion broke out in the Azure Dragon Sanctum and the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. The group of elders and disciples kept talking about Duan Lingtian. As for the Black Turtle Sanctum, it was even livelier. As expected of senior brother Duan Lingtian, from our Black Turtle Sanctum, it has only been a few years, but he's already able to defeat a Golden Flame Elder in our sanctum. Based on senior brother Duan Lingtian's progress, apart from Lord Sect Leader, no one in our Zoroastrianism will be able to defeat him in a few years' time. Amazing! Senior brother Duan Lingtian is really amazing. That's the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum. But he actually defeated him with just a slap. When the group of Black Turtle Sanctum's disciples learned that Duan Lingtian had returned and defeated the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, they were extremely excited. It was as though the person who defeated the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum was not Duan Lingtian, but them. It has only been a few years, and he has already grown so strong? In the Black Turtle Sanctum, Guoxiong, the enforcement elder who was close to Duan Lingtian, was stunned when he received the news. When he regained his senses, he could not help but sigh in shock. Do you think the news about Duan Lingtian killing the Golden Lion King, Siekong Sun, one of the 4 great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism, from Sin City in the central region is true? At this moment, many people in the 4 symbols sanctums recalled the news that they had heard before. At that time, almost everyone thought that this was unrealistic fake news. However, today, Duan Lingtian had returned to Zoroastrianism and defeated the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, a powerhouse whose cultivation base was at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage, with just a flip of his hand. I think the news might be true, someone said. I still don't think it's true. Although Duan Lingtian managed to defeat the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, it only means his strength is at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage, or above. However, not only is Siekong Sun, the Golden Lion King from Zhuangzi Buddhism, a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, but he's ranked 18th on the Supreme Saint ranking. Many people said. In the end, most people did not think Duan Lingtian was strong enough to kill Siekong Sun, the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism. They were certain the news was fake. The news of Duan Lingtian defeating the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, with just a flip of his hand swept through the 4 symbols sanctums, and began to spread to the Saint Land. In the Saint Land, Duan Lingtian entered the Saint Island, and immediately made his way to the enforcement hall. From the beginning until the end, he did not stop at all. Wait for me. Chapter 2180. Duan Lingtian had gone to the enforcement hall because of Kerr. To be more precise, it was for Kerr and their daughter. If he had the chance, he would immediately bring Kerr and their daughter out of the enforcement hall, so they could leave Zoroastrianism and reunite with their family. Naturally, he did not think it was realistic. Put aside the fact that Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, could extend his divine consciousness to monitor the enforcement hall at any time. Even if Tang Xian was not monitoring the enforcement hall, the people in the enforcement hall would be able to contact him immediately. Duan Lingtian knew his limits. If Tang Xian intervened, even if he managed to bring Kerr and their daughter out of the enforcement hall, they would not be able to leave Zoroastrianism. If Kerr and our daughter aren't in any danger for now, I can enter the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda to cultivate and break through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage as soon as possible. Duan Lingtian thought to himself as he made his way to the enforcement hall. As long as my cultivation base breaks through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, I won't be afraid of Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. With the help of the Celestial Supreme Treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword, Duan Lingtian was filled with confidence as he thought to himself. Currently, his cultivation base was at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage. With the help of the Celestial Supreme Treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword, if he unleashed his full strength, not many people below the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, in the Tao Martial Saint Land, would be able to withstand a blow from him. If his cultivation base was at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage, his strength would be even more terrifying with the help of the Celestial Supreme Treasure, the Jasper Celestial Sword. At that time, even ordinary powerhouses at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage might not be able to withstand a blow from him. Soon after, Duan Lingtian arrived at the enforcement hall. However, I'll have to find an excuse to come to the enforcement hall today. I can't let people know I'm here for Kerr and our daughter. Should I say I'm here for Gan Ruyen? That's a good idea. After all, I've come to look for her before. Just as Duan Lingtian was about to use Gan Ruyen as an excuse, a thought suddenly appeared in his mind, a better excuse. I almost forgot about him. If it's not for his help, I wouldn't have been able to leave the Zoroastrianisms. Since I'm I'm Duan Lingtian have Duan Lingtians of Zoroastrian celestials. Not to Lingtian celestial Xian. Zan Xian to sect. It's Luan's the sect. Celestial. Duan celestial can celestial Tian. The person Duan Lingtian, referred to as none other than Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall. He was also the father of Dong Lin, the enforcement hall's elder who had a conflict with Duan Lingtian. Although Duan Lingtian had never met Dong Yuanjin before, Dong Yuanjin had tried to kill him time and time again. For this reason, Duan Lingtian had long regarded Dong Yuanjin as his mortal enemy. If he had the chance, he would not let Dong Yuanjin go. Golden Crow's wings. After entering the enforcement hall's area, Duan Lingtian did not wait for the enforcement hall's patrolling elder to react. He had already mobilized the Sun Saint origin in his body and cast his movement divine ability, the Golden Crow's wings. In just a blink of an eye, a pair of flaming wings appeared on Duan Lingtian's back. From afar, it looked like two burning fireballs. After the wings took form, Duan Lingtian flapped his wings. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. As a series of muffled noises reverberated in the air, Duan Lingtian shot toward the depths of the enforcement hall, like an arrow that had left its bow. His speed was not much slower than an ordinary powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Who's that? Who's that? When Duan Lingtian left like a gust of wind, a few patrolling elders arrived at the spot where Duan Lingtian had been. However, they did not discover anything. At this moment, Duan Lingtian had already arrived at the eastern side of the enforcement hall. This was also the forbidden area in the enforcement hall that was mentioned by others when he was on duty a few years ago. It was said that the hall master of the enforcement hall and a few vice hall masters of the enforcement hall usually cultivated in the forbidden area. The reason this place was called a forbidden area was because ordinary elders and disciples of the enforcement hall were restricted from entering and exiting this place. The enforcement hall had its own rules, and they were not allowed to enter this place for no reason. Naturally, there were exceptions. For example, the children and direct disciples of the hall master and vice hall masters of the enforcement hall could enter and leave the forbidden area freely. Nobody would say anything about their entry and exit. After entering the forbidden area of the enforcement hall, Duan Lingtian came to a halt. Dong Yuanjin, come out here. All of a sudden, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed as he shouted. His voice contained rich Sun Saint origin. As soon as he opened his mouth, his voice reverberated throughout the entire law enforcement hall's forbidden area. There was a quiet little valley in the forbidden area of the enforcement hall. The valley was filled with the fragrance of flowers and chirping birds. There was a waterfall in the north, and one could faintly hear the sound of water splashing from the waterfall. In the open space in front of the waterfall, there was a mansion. The mansion was surrounded by mountains and rivers. It looked very comfortable. However, as soon as Duan Lingtian's voice rang in the air, the silence in the small valley was broken. The people inside were shocked. Who's that? In the mansion in the small valley, the expression of the enforcement hall's elder, Dong Lin, changed drastically when he heard the explosive shouts from outside. He did not expect someone would be so bold as to ask his father, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, to get out of here. Moreover, he felt the voice was familiar. It was as though he had heard it before, but he could not recall where. At the same time, the people in the valley were also shocked. Who's that? How dare he cause trouble in the enforcement hall? Based on his voice, he must be Vice Hall Master Dong's enemy. However, Vice Hall Master Dong's enemy is really bold. How dare he trespass in the enforcement hall of Zoroastrianism and ask Vice Hall Master Dong to get out of here? I'd like to see who's here. The people who were shocked were either the other Vice Hall Masters of the enforcement hall, their children, or direct disciples. When they heard the provocative voice, they could not suppress their curiosity. One by one, they leaped into the air and flew toward the source of the voice. They wanted to see who dared to cause trouble in the enforcement hall of Zoroastrianism. After he shouted, Duan Lingtian stood in the air with his hands clasped behind his back. He seemed to be waiting leisurely. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As the sound of wind whistling reverberated in the air, figures began to fly over from all directions. In just a blink of an eye, they arrived near Duan Lingtian and formed a circle around him. And these people were basically the children and direct disciples of some law enforcement hall's Vice Hall Master. They came from the forbidden area of the enforcement hall under Duan Lingtian's feet. Why does this person look so familiar? Look at the exclusive uniform he's wearing. It's obvious he's a true disciple of our Zoroastrianism. However, since when did our fire worship sect have such a person as a true disciple? Not only did he trespass on our enforcement hall's forbidden area, but he even threatened to ask Vice Hall Master Dong to come out. Why do I find this true disciple so familiar? Don't you think so too? I have the same feeling. The more I look at him, the more familiar he looks. So, I'm not alone. A group of people surrounded Duan Lingtian and pointed at Duan Lingtian. Many of them who found Duan Lingtian familiar frowned, as though they were thinking hard about something. I remember now. All of a sudden, an exclamation rang in the air, startling the people in the surroundings. Immediately, the gazes of the surrounding people fell on the person who had cried out in alarm. The person who exclaimed was a young man. When he saw so many people looking at him, he did not wait for them to urge him to speak before he hastily said, He's Duan Lingtian. He's Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian. The moment the young man's words left his mouth, the entire place fell silent again. After a long time, the group of people finally regained their senses. They shifted their attention from the young man to the true disciple of the Zoroastrianism, who was hovering in the air not far away. I remember now. He's Duan Lingtian. I've seen his portrait before. I remember now. He's indeed Duan Lingtian. I've seen his portrait 3 years ago, but I couldn't recall it earlier. Me too. It's really Duan Lingtian. He's back so soon? It's only been 3 days since the sect leader made the announcement, right? Soon after, the group of people who came to watch also recognized Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian has enmity with Vice Hall Master Dong? Many people could not help but have a puzzled expression on their faces when they recalled Duan Lingtian's shout earlier. I'm not too sure about that. All I know is that Duan Lingtian and Vice Hall Master Dong's son, Dong Lin, had quite a conflict. Some of the people present on the scene knew what had happened. Duan Lingtian. All of a sudden, a furious shout resonated from below. Under everyone's watchful eyes, a figure rose into the air and appeared near Duan Lingtian in just a blink of an eye. He stood in the air, facing off against Duan Lingtian. It's Elder Dong Lin. Someone recognized the person as soon as he appeared. Dong Lin was the son of Dong Yuanjin, the Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall. There was almost no one in the Enforcement Hall who did not know him. Duan Lingtian, don't think that just because Lord Sect Leader made the announcement that you're allowed to return, it's equivalent to obtaining a death exemption token. Chapter 2181. Dong Lin could be considered as an old acquaintance of Duan Lingtian. It was also because of Dong Lin that the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, Dong Yuanjin, viewed Duan Lingtian as a thorn in his side. He could not wait to kill Duan Lingtian as soon as possible. Death exemption golden medallion? Upon hearing Dong Lin's words, Duan Lingtian could not help but glance at Dong Lin for a moment. The corners of his mouth curled up in disdain. I'm sorry, I don't know about others, but I, Duan Lingtian, really don't need that thing in front of you, Dong Lin. Whoosh! As soon as Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, it immediately caused an uproar in the crowd. Then, everyone's eyes fell on Dong Lin in unison. After all, Duan Lingtian's words were obviously provoking Dong Lin. Of course, they also knew that Duan Lingtian really did not need the death exemption golden medallion in front of Dong Lin, because once they fought, Dong Lin was no match for Duan Lingtian at all. The two of them were on completely different levels. This was a foregone conclusion a few years ago. Based on the comparison of their talents, it was difficult to change this fact. Dong Lin was infuriated when he heard Duan Lingtian's provocative words. However, he did not know what to say in response. This was because what Duan Lingtian said was the truth. Even if Duan Lingtian did not have the death exemption golden medallion, there was no need to fear him, because he was no match for Duan Lingtian at all. However, even if this was the truth, he still could not help but feel furious when Duan Lingtian used this to provoke him. Just as many people were looking at Dong Lin mockingly, causing him to feel ashamed of himself, a voice suddenly rang out. A thunderous voice rang out at the right time. You, Duan Lingtian, don't need the death exemption golden medallion in front of him. What about me? Accompanying this voice was a middle-aged man who stepped into the air and appeared in front of Dong Lin in the blink of an eye, protecting Dong Lin behind him. It was this middle-aged man who had said those words. The middle-aged man had a sturdy build. He stood in front of Dong Lin like an iron tower, majestic and domineering. Whoosh! When the middle-aged man appeared, it was as if a gust of wind had blown past him. At the same time, an old man in plain clothes appeared beside Dong Lin. He stood silently behind the middle-aged man like a servant. It's Vice Hall Master Dong. It's said that Elder Yang is a powerhouse at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage, who's on par with Vice Hall Master Dong. I also heard my master mention this Elder Yang. He said that this Elder Yang's strength is not below his. Your teacher is Vice Hall Master Jiang? Yes. When the middle-aged man and the old man behind him appeared one after another, the crowd couldn't help but whisper to each other. As they spoke, their identities were exposed. Dong Yuanjin? When Duan Lingtian heard the crowd's whispers, he looked at the middle-aged man coldly. His gaze was as sharp as a sword, as though it could tear anything apart. All this while, he had always followed the principle of not offending others if they didn't offend him. Putting everything else aside, he had a clear conscience about what he had done to Dong Yuanjin's son, Dong Lin. However, Dong Yuanjin had tried to kill him just to stand up for Dong Lin. How could Dong Lin tolerate this? Duan Lingtian, you're the boldest true disciple I've ever seen in the history of Zoroastrianism. Although this was Dong Yuanjin's first time meeting Duan Lingtian, it did not affect his hostility toward Duan Lingtian. You're just a true disciple. Not only did you trespass in the enforcement hall, but you even trespassed in the enforcement hall's forbidden area. After trespassing in the enforcement hall's forbidden area, you even dared to shout at me, the Vice Hall Master of the enforcement hall, to come out. Dong Yuanjin emphasized the word scram as he spoke. Although Dong Yuanjin had a calm expression on his face, the crowd could clearly sense the murderous intent that was emanating from his body. It was a murderous intent that was born from extreme anger. They knew that the Vice Hall Master of the enforcement hall was truly enraged. In the history of Zoroastrianism, I don't think there's ever been a true disciple as bold as Duan Lingtian. Not only has there never been a true disciple like him in the history of Zoroastrianism, but I don't think there's a true disciple like him in the history of the other two great sects either. I really don't know where Duan Lingtian got his courage from. Not only did he trespass in the enforcement hall's forbidden area, but he even dared to shout at Vice Hall Master Dong to come out. Doesn't he know that his crimes are enough for the enforcement hall to punish him for multiple crimes? Even if Duan Lingtian was personally invited back by the sect leader, with all the crimes he has committed, even if he doesn't die this time, I'm afraid he'll lose a layer of skin. I really don't know what he's thinking. The crowd exclaimed at Duan Lingtian's boldness. At the same time, they felt that Duan Lingtian was going to be unlucky. You flatter me. Hearing Dong Yuanjin's sarcastic words, Duan Lingtian replied calmly. His response immediately infuriated Dong Yuanjin, and his eyes revealed a ghastly killing intent, as if he was about to devour Dong Yuanjin. You flatter him? Don't tell me Duan Lingtian can't tell Vice Hall Master Dong is mocking him. I think he's doing it on purpose. Duan Lingtian's reply caused an uproar among the crowd. They didn't expect Duan Lingtian to be so stubborn at this time. Doesn't he know that he's in big trouble? Ha 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 ha. At this moment, Dong Yuanjin was so angry that he started laughing. He laughed for a while before he finally stopped. After he stopped laughing, he looked at Duan Lingtian with an even colder gaze. Duan Lingtian, believe it or not, even if the sect leader personally invited you back, I can still send you to the enforcement hall's punishment hall today. You'll suffer all kinds of torture, and suffer a fate worse than death. As he spoke, Dong Yuanjin's voice became extremely cold. When the surrounding crowd heard his words, they felt as if the surrounding temperature had dropped by a few degrees. From this, they could sense Dong Yuanjin's anger. Everyone's eyes fell on Duan Lingtian, waiting to see how Duan Lingtian would respond to Dong Yuanjin. I'm sorry, I don't believe you. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Duan Lingtian shrugged nonchalantly. His tone was as indifferent as before. Dong Yuanjin's face twisted in anger. Duan Lingtian continued, I remember you asked me something earlier. Now I can give you an answer. I'm sorry, but I don't need the death exemption token in front of your son Dong Lin. I don't even need it in front of you, Dong Yuanjin. You want me, Duan Lingtian, to be afraid of your threats? I'm sorry, I don't know about others, but you, Dong Yuanjin, are not qualified to do that. Duan Lingtian's words were not only rude, but he also fell out with Dong Yuanjin. You, Dong Yuanjin, are not qualified to do that. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, the scene fell into a dead silence again. Only the sound of rapid breathing could be heard. The crowd was obviously stunned by Duan Lingtian's words. The onlookers were not the only ones who were stunned. Even the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, Dong Yuanjin, his son, Dong Lin, and the old man behind him were completely stunned by Duan Lingtian's words. They would never have dreamed that Duan Lingtian would be so arrogant. They could not believe that Duan Lingtian would be so arrogant. Arrogant. He's too arrogant. After a while, many of the onlookers regained their senses and spoke in unison. They all felt that Duan Lingtian was too arrogant. Duan Lingtian, you're courting death. Dong Lin shouted coldly after he regained his senses. His eyes were fierce. Although Dong Yuanjin did not say anything, his eyes turned cold in an instant, and his body emitted a bone-chilling aura. It was so cold that it seemed to be able to freeze water into ice, just as the atmosphere became so tense that it could explode at any time. Those who humiliate my master die. As the old man shouted angrily, the old man behind Dong Yuanjin disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared, he was charging toward Duan Lingtian at an extremely fast speed. Boom! 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 A thunderous voice rang in the air as the old man attacked Duan Lingtian at lightning speed. He did not hold back at all when he attacked Duan Lingtian. Moreover, he attacked Duan Lingtian. As soon as he attacked Duan Lingtian, it was obvious that he wanted to kill Duan Lingtian. He did not seem to be afraid of Duan Lingtian, because the leader of Zoroastrianism had personally invited him back. I'm sorry. If that's all you have, I'm afraid it's not enough to kill me. Duan Lingtian's calm voice rang out again. Even in the face of the old man's storm-like attacks, his body was still as immovable as a mountain. When the crowd heard Duan Lingtian's calm words, before they could react, they saw Duan Lingtian suddenly raised his right hand and clenched it into a fist before he vanished into thin air before their eyes. Bang! When Duan Lingtian's fist disappeared before their eyes, a thunderous sound rang in their ears. In the next moment, they were shocked to see Duan Lingtian's old man, Elder Yang, the old servant next to Dong Yuanjin, the Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, was at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage. He was not much weaker than Dong Yuanjin. Chapter 2182. Under the watchful eyes of the others, The old man who charged toward Duan Lingtian, with lightning speed suddenly exploded into a mist of blood, before he could even get close to Duan Lingtian. Bang! At the same time, a thunderous explosion rang in their ears, causing their eardrums to vibrate. The speed of sound was slower than the speed of light after all. For this reason, they saw the old man being killed before they heard the explosion. Gasp! 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 After a moment of silence, the sound of rapid inhalation of cold air rang out in a timely manner. Swoosh! 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 At the same time, many pairs of eyes landed on Duan Lingtian. There was a hint of shock and disbelief in the depths of their eyes. They knew very well who the old man was. He was the old servant of Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall. His cultivation base was at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage, and he was ranked in the top 100 on the Supreme Saint ranking. However, such a person was killed by Duan Lingtian with just a punch. What did this mean? This meant that a powerhouse at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage was nothing in front of Duan Lingtian. No, no, no. Impossible. Impossible. A trembling voice that was filled with shock and disbelief resonated in the air. It was none other than Elder Dong Lin from the enforcement hall, who was stunned for a moment when he saw Duan Lingtian killing the old man with just one punch. When he came back to his senses, he even felt that he was dreaming. He hurriedly reached out and pinched his thigh, then raised his hand and slapped himself in the face with a paw sound. Whether it was the pain in his leg or the pain in his face, they were clearly and mercilessly telling him the truth. He was not dreaming. Everything he saw just now was real. Duan Lingtian had indeed killed Elder Yang, who was not much weaker than his father, with just a punch. Dong Lin's voice was trembling when he spoke. Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, no longer had a cold expression on his face. It was replaced with an expression of shock and disbelief. The scene from just now constantly assaulted his eyeballs, his heart, and his soul. This was his first time feeling so shocked. He killed Elder Yang with just a punch. I'm afraid even a powerhouse at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage wouldn't be able to do that. Dong Yuanjin's body began to tremble when he thought of this. At the same time, fear began to rise in his heart. Once it rose, it could no longer be suppressed. Moreover, it rapidly spread, and in the end, it even affected his soul, causing his soul to tremble. When he looked at Duan Lingtian again, apart from the shock and disbelief in his eyes, there was also a hint of dread and fear in them. The strength Duan Lingtian revealed caused him to be terrified, and it was even to the extent that he did not have the slightest intention to go against Duan Lingtian. He was too strong. Duan Lingtian's strength was too strong. Once upon a time, in his eyes, the Duan Lingtian was just a lowly existence that could be trampled upon by him. He didn't even need to personally make a move to toy with the Duan Lingtian, and even kill the Duan Lingtian. But today, after a few years, the strength that Duan Lingtian had displayed made him realize that Duan Lingtian's strength was far from enough. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. The current Duan Lingtian was no longer the Duan Lingtian of a few years ago. Duan Lingtian now had the strength to easily crush Dong Yuanjin. No matter how unwilling he was to accept this reality, he had no choice but to accept it. Because this was reality, a reality that could not be changed. A trace of regret spread in his heart. Of course, it was not that he regretted offending the Duan Lingtian, but that he regretted not killing the Duan Lingtian himself earlier. In his opinion, this was not the case. If he had personally killed the Duan Lingtian a few years ago, it would have been impossible for the Duan Lingtian to leave the Zoroastrianism alive. How terrifying! How terrifying! Yes, how terrifying! He killed a powerhouse at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage with just one punch. Even an ordinary powerhouse at the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage might not be so strong, right? In the Zoroastrianism, I'm afraid only Lord Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall would be able to kill Elder Yang with just one punch, right? Doesn't this mean Duan Lingtian's strength is not inferior to Lord Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall? Although it's still hard to believe, It seems to be the truth. The onlookers could not help but sigh when they regained their senses. Their voices were filled with shock. Just now, the sudden change in the situation before their eyes had left them a little dazed. Initially, they did not think highly of Duanling Tian. However, as soon as Duanling Tian made his move, his strength was beyond their imagination. He killed the old servant by Dong Yuanjin's side with just a punch. Moreover, the old servant was not an ordinary servant. He was a powerhouse at the fifth form of the Saint Celestial stage. If he wanted to, he could become a golden flame elder in the Zoroastrianism. Most importantly, Dong Yuanjin was not weak at all. The old servant next to Dong Yuanjin was not much weaker than him. Since Duanling Tian could kill the old servant with just one punch, it meant he could kill Dong Yuanjin with just one punch as well. Naturally, even if he could not kill Dong Yuanjin with just one punch, what about 2 punches? 3 punches? Why are there so many people here? Just as the atmosphere of the scene had once again become strangely silent, a cry of surprise was heard. It was somewhat late, but it still broke the silent atmosphere of the scene. Accompanying him was a swift figure. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in front of the group of people. Vice Hall Master Jiang. Everyone present on the scene recognized the person. He was none other than the other Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, Jiang Qin. Vice Hall Master Jiang? When Duanling Tian heard the whispers in the crowd, he shifted his gaze from the Dong father and son to the person who had just arrived. He asked coldly, "Are you Jiang Qin, the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall?" Jiang Qin was the person who had sent his wife and daughter to the Enforcement Hall. A few years ago, when he was on duty in the Enforcement Hall, he had only heard of Jiang Qin, but he had never seen him before. However, he knew Jiang Qin. Among the Vice Hall Masters in the Enforcement Hall, only one of them had the surname Jiang. Jiang Qin regained his senses when he heard Duanling Tian's cold voice. He turned to look at Duanling Tian. With just a glance, he noticed that Duanling Tian looked slightly familiar. When he recalled the news he had just heard, a thought flashed through his mind. The person in the portrait matched perfectly with the person in front of him. Duanling Tian? Jiang Qin could not help but gasp when he recalled who the person in front of him was. He had just returned from outside, and he had heard about how Duanling Tian had defeated the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum with just a flip of his palm. He was deeply shocked by this. Although he had never met Duanling Tian, he had heard of Duanling Tian more than once. Now, after a few years, the true disciple of Zoroastrianism had become so powerful? Even he couldn't help but feel shocked by this. Could it be that the news from the city of Sin is also true? Did the Golden Lion King, Siekong Sun, one of the 4 great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism, really die in the hands of Duanling Tian? When he learned that Duanling Tian had the strength to defeat the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum with just a flip of his palm, this thought had crossed his mind more than once. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, he could no longer suppress it. Now, he only needed to confirm it. Duanling Tianyu, what are you trying to do? Suddenly, Jiang Qin noticed that Duanling Tian's gaze gradually turned cold. Duanling Tian raised his right hand and emitted a cold aura. His saint origin gathered in his right hand in the blink of an eye. This cold aura was directed at Jiang Qin. Almost as soon as Jiang Qin finished speaking, the saint origin in his body surged as he prepared himself. Duanling Tian's right hand suddenly pressed down. Boom! Accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion, the Sun Saint origin in Duanling Tian's right hand surged and transformed into a palm print that was as huge as a mountain before it slammed down on Jiang Qin. Wherever the palm print passed, the saint origin that had just risen in Jiang Qin's body was shattered. Bang! A loud explosion reverberated in the air as Jiang Qin was slammed down by Duanling Tian's palm. He landed in the enforcement hall's forbidden area, causing the entire place to shake violently. When the gigantic palm print that was completely formed by Sun Saint origin dissipated, everyone present saw Jiang Qin being slammed into the ground by Duanling Tian. His entire body was embedded in the ground. It was a comical and pathetic sight. The scene that the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum had experienced earlier was also repeated on Jiang Qin. the vice hall master of the enforcement hall. However, when everyone saw this scene, they were speechless. They only felt a chill run down their spines. This was especially true for Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall. His eyes were wide open. As a vice hall master of the enforcement hall, he knew Jiang Qin's strength very well. Although Jiang Qin was not as strong as him, he was on par with old Yang, the old servant next to him. If Duan Lingtian was able to kill old Yang with a single punch, because of luck, Dong Yuanjin found it difficult to think so now. Barf! Jiang Qin, who had climbed up from the human-shaped crater, spat out a large mouthful of black blood. He no longer looked as spirited as before. His face was covered in dirt, and he looked wretched. Duan Lingtian. Then, he raised his head and glared at Duan Lingtian in the air. He growled. What are you doing? This is the first time I, Jiang Qin, have seen you. Why did you hurt me? At this moment, Jiang Qin's heart was at a loss, completely dumbfounded. Chapter 2183. Why did I hurt you? Upon hearing Jiang Qin's words, Duan Lingtian glanced at him indifferently before he said unhurriedly, It's nothing. I just don't like you. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, an uproar broke out in the crowd. Originally, when the group of people present on the scene saw Duan Lingtian had only spoken a few words to Jiang Qin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, before making a move on Jiang Qin, they thought Jiang Qin had offended Duan Lingtian in the past. They did not expect Duan Lingtian would attack Jiang Qin for such a reason. He attacked Vice Hall Master Jiang because he doesn't like him? Isn't Duan Lingtian a little too domineering? Even if he's domineering, he has the strength to back it up. I can see that with Duan Lingtian's current strength, I'm afraid Lord Hall Master is the only one in the enforcement hall who's capable of defeating him. Naturally, it's only a possibility. That's right. Up until now, the strength he has displayed is too terrifying. He killed a powerhouse at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage, with just a punch, and suppressed another powerhouse, at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage, with just a flip of his palm. If there's anyone who's capable of this, I think it's Lord Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, Lord Sect Leader of the Zoroastrianism, and the 3 Lords Guardians. Me too. The crowd began to discuss among themselves again. Based on their words, they were shocked by Duan Lingtian's strength. On the other side, originally, Jiang Qin was still wondering if he had unintentionally offended Duan Lingtian, and that was why Duan Lingtian attacked him without saying a word. If that was the case, he would accept it even if he was injured by Duan Lingtian. After all, he was the one who had offended Duan Lingtian first. When he heard Duan Lingtian's words, he was stunned for a moment before his body trembled violently. He was so angry that he spat out another mouthful of dazzling blood. You. Jiang Qin was so angry that his body began to tremble violently. He pointed a trembling finger at Duan Lingtian and muttered to himself for a long time. But he did not manage to finish his sentence. What could he say? What should he say? Jiang Qin was completely confused. As for taking revenge, he did not have the guts to do so. What a joke. Retaliate. He would be asking for it. He had not killed Duan Lingtian. He had only heard that Duan Lingtian had defeated the Sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum easily. Duan Lingtian's strength. Duan Lingtian's attack earlier had made him realize how terrifying Duan Lingtian's strength was. I'm afraid even Lord Hall Master might not be as strong as him. Moreover, although he injured me, the Deputy Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall is against the rules to a certain extent. He can ignore the rules with his current strength. Perhaps, even if he kills me today, nothing will happen to him. After all, not only is he a powerhouse whose strength is not inferior to our Law Enforcement Hall's Hall Master, he's also a martial arts genius who's not even 50 years old. Such a person means a lot to Zoroastrianism. Even if he kills all the Deputy Hall Masters of the Law Enforcement Hall, the Hierarch and the Guardians might not blame him. As for the others, they don't have the right to blame him. Many thoughts flashed through Jiang Qin's mind in an instant. At this moment, the anger in his heart had completely vanished. This was because he knew that no matter how angry he was, it would be useless. He could not do anything to Duan Lingtian. What? Deputy Hall Master Jiang. Do you still have a problem with me? Duan Lingtian looked at Jiang Qin and asked calmly. Although his tone was calm, it was no different from a bolt from the blue in Jiang Qin's ears. Jiang Qin was so shocked that he immediately regained his senses. He quickly shook his head and said, No, no. At this point, did he still dare to have an opinion? If he did, what if Duan Lingtian killed him in a fit of rage? A bad life is better than a good death. This was Jiang Qin's most direct thought. After his voice fell, Jiang Qin also found that the surrounding group of people looked at him with a somewhat strange gaze. For a moment, he felt extremely humiliated. However, he could only endure it silently. At this moment, Jiang Qin would never have dreamed that Duan Lingtian would be so ruthless. He did not think that Duan Lingtian was targeting him, because he sent Duan Lingtian's wife and daughter to the law enforcement hall, causing them to be separated. If he had not acted according to the rules of Zoroastrianism, and had no intention of targeting Kerr and her daughter, he would not have survived. That's good. Duan Lingtian looked at Jiang Qin deeply, before he turned his gaze back to Dong Yuanjin. He said calmly, Deputy Hall Master Dong, now is the time to settle the matter between you and me. Duan Lingtian went straight to the point. Suddenly, the group of people's eyes turned to Dong Yuanjin. From the roar that Duan Lingtian let out when he first arrived, they could tell that he was here for the Deputy Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. Duan Lingtian, don't be too arrogant. Before Dong Yuanjin could say anything, his son Dong Lin had already jumped out and growled, Don't worry. Although I don't know how you managed to become so powerful in just a few years. Do you really think you can do whatever you want in the fire worship sect with just this little bit of strength? Let alone Zoroastrianism. Even the law enforcement hall isn't afraid of you. When Lord Lung Ying, the hall master of the law enforcement hall, arrives, you'll be in big trouble. When Dong Lin reached the end of his sentence, he brought up Lung Ying, the hall master of the law enforcement hall, in an attempt to intimidate Duan Lingtian. The hall master of the law enforcement hall, Lung Ying? Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes when he heard Dong Lin's words. A glint flashed in his eyes. A few years ago, when he was on duty in the law enforcement hall, he had heard about Lung Ying, the hall master of the law enforcement hall. He knew Lung Ying was one of the 3 great guardians of Zoroastrianism. Lung Ying's cultivation base could break through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage at any time. That's right. Lord Lung Ying is a powerhouse at the peak of the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage. When Dong Lin saw Duan Lingtian narrowing his eyes, he thought Duan Lingtian was afraid. He calmed down immediately and said proudly, You're right. So what? At this moment, Duan Lingtian opened his eyes as a sneer appeared on his face. Put aside the fact that Lung Ying, the hall master of the law enforcement hall, isn't here. Even if he's here, I, Duan Lingtian, have nothing to fear. Even if he's here, he won't be able to change the fate of Dong Lin and his son. Dong Lin's expression changed drastically when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. You. Dong Yuanjin's eyes widened as his heart trembled. Could it be that Duan Lingtian was so strong that he could disregard the hall master of the law enforcement hall? Dong Yuanjin could not help but inwardly gasp when he thought about this. At the same time, he looked at Duan Lingtian again and said in a deep voice, Duan Lingtian, I remember that although there were some conflicts between you and my son back then, you didn't escalate the conflict. As for me, I never thought of standing up for him. Could it be that you've come here today to settle old scores? Are you here to escalate the conflict? Many people were moved by Dong Yuanjin's words. Does that mean Duan Lingtian came to our law enforcement hall today because of the small conflict he had with Elder Dong Lin a few years ago? Isn't he making a mountain out of a molehill? It's just a small conflict. Is there a need to be so aggressive? I guess it's because he didn't have the strength to challenge Vice Hall Master Dong a few years ago, so he chose to hide it. Now that he has the strength to challenge Vice Hall Master Dong, it's only natural for him to show up. If Vice Hall Master Dong wanted to deal with him a few years ago, do you think he would still be alive? Vice Hall Master Dong must be regretting not dealing with him back then, and leaving such a huge threat behind, right? After hearing Dong Yuanjin's words, the crowd began to discuss among themselves. They secretly criticized Duan Lingtian for seeking revenge for the smallest grievance. They felt that Duan Lingtian was making a mountain out of a molehill and was unforgiving after gaining the upper hand. So what if someone like Duan Lingtian has a high innate talent? His strength may be very strong, but I don't agree with his conduct and character. He's gone too far. If Vice Hall Master Dong really wanted to kill him a few years ago, do you think he would still be alive? The crowd whispered among themselves, but they were all supporting Dong Yuanjin. This was enough to show that Dong Yuanjin's words were true. Dong Yuanjin's words had successfully changed the public's opinion. He portrayed himself as someone who did not get rid of Duan Lingtian and ended up being harmed instead. He portrayed Duan Lingtian as someone who did not know what was good for him and would repay evil with good. Duan Lingtian did not care about what others thought. Even so, he was still displeased to see the effect of Dong Yuanjin's words. Dong Yuanjin, I didn't expect you to still be struggling at this point. Duan Lingtian looked coldly at Dong Yuanjin and said mockingly, since you're making yourself sound so pitiful, I'll give you a chance to live. If you grab hold of this chance, I won't kill you and your father today. If you don't blame me, Duan Lingtian, for being merciless. Duan Lingtian's words were loud and clear. What chance? Dong Yuanjin asked. He had a bad feeling about this. In the next moment his bad feeling came true. As long as you swear on the lightning penalty oath in front of everyone that you didn't kill me when I was still practicing Zoroastrianism 3 years ago, I'll spare your life today. Chapter 2184. As long as you swear on the lightning penalty oath in front of everyone that you didn't kill me when I was still practicing Zoroastrianism 3 years ago, I'll spare both of your lives today. Duan Lingtian's words echoed in Dong Yuanjin's mind. Swear on the lightning penalty oath? 3 years ago, when Duan Lingtian was still in the fire worship sect, he did not order his men to kill Duan Lingtian? Dong Yuanjin's face turned green when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. Swear on my ass. If he swore on the lightning penalty oath, would he not be killed by the lightning penalty? It was fine for him to lie in front of a group of people who did not know what was going on. However, he had to swear on the lightning penalty oath? That was no joke. Now Dong Yuanjin felt like he had shot himself in the foot. He had said so much in the beginning because he wanted to stand on the moral high ground and arouse others' pity. However, Duan Lingtian had returned him to his original state with just a few words. Moreover, Duan Lingtian had mercilessly destroyed the lie that he had painstakingly made up. What? You don't dare to swear? Duan Lingtian did not intend to let Dong Yuanjin off so easily. He asked mockingly, Vice Hall Master Dong, are you feeling guilty? Naturally, Dong Yuanjin did not respond to Duan Lingtian's question. What could he say? That everything he had said earlier was a lie? That he had slandered Duan Lingtian? At the same time, Dong Yuanjin realized something. Duan Lingtian had come today to seek revenge. After all, Dong Yuanjin had tried his best to kill Duan Lingtian in the past. It was just that he did not make a move himself. Vice Hall Master Dong doesn't dare to swear on the lightning penalty oath as Duan Lingtian has requested? Many people in the crowd were confused when they saw Dong Yuanjin keeping quiet. Didn't he say the conflict between Duan Lingtian and his son Dong Lin was only a small conflict? Didn't he say he had never thought of standing up for his son? Why is he afraid to swear on the lightning penalty oath at such a critical moment? More and more people were puzzled. Don't tell me you can't see it? He's just spouting nonsense. His purpose is to stand on the moral high ground and make us stand on his side. He wants to use our strength to condemn Duan Lingtian. Some people came back to their senses and became much more clear-headed. They voiced their own judgments. So that's how it is. To think I thought he was telling the truth. As it turns out, he's just using us. Vice Hall Master Dong, you are truly too much to deceive us like this. As it turns out, Vice Hall Master Dong once wanted to kill Duan Lingtian. No wonder Duan Lingtian barged into the enforcement hall and asked Vice Hall Master Dong to get his ass out here. Duan Lingtian SS. Duan Lingtian's tea after all, he tried to kill me before. Seeing how Dong Yuanjin did not dare to swear on the lightning penalty oath that Duan Lingtian had asked him to swear on, the people present on the scene realized they had been deceived by Dong Yuanjin. They immediately changed their stance and supported Duan Lingtian. Naturally, Duan Lingtian did not care if these people supported him or not. Duan Lingtian had asked Dong Yuanjin to swear on the lightning penalty oath. Although he wanted Dong Yuanjin to reveal his true colors in front of everyone, he was more annoyed by Dong Yuanjin's moral high ground. He did not care about the feelings of the bystanders. Duan Lingtian, who do you think you are? Do you think you're worthy of my father swearing on the lightning penalty oath? At this moment, Dong Lin stepped forward and glared at Duan Lingtian as he said haughtily, "You're right." Dong Lin did not seem to understand the situation at all. Liner. Dong Yuanjin's expression changed drastically when Dong Lin stepped forward. He hurriedly tried to stop him, but it was too late. His heartbeat quickened for no reason. This was because when Duan Lingtian asked him to swear on the lightning penalty oath, he could sense a hint of impatience in Duan Lingtian's calm voice. It was as though Duan Lingtian's patience had reached its limit. Noisy. As soon as Dong Lin finished speaking, Duan Lingtian frowned and said impatiently in a low voice, "Stop it." Duan Lingtian casually waved his hand at Dong Lin as soon as he finished speaking. With a simple wave of Duan Lingtian's hand, a vast and majestic energy swept out like a raging WRM toward Dong Lin at an exaggerated speed. Boom, 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 boom. Wherever the flood dragon passed, thunderous sounds of air exploding could be heard. It was deafening. In just a blink of an eye, the flood dragon was already close to Dong Lin. It opened its bloody mouth and pounced on Dong Lin. No. Dong Yuanjin came to his senses and let out a sorrowful cry. Then, he rushed out to rescue his son. However, when he was halfway there, the WRM dragon had already swallowed Dong Lin in one gulp. Bang! A loud noise rang in the air, and a bloody mist filled the air. The flood dragon seemed to have eaten too much and exploded. It disappeared in just a blink of an eye. As for Dong Lin, he had completely disappeared. It was as though he had never existed in the first place. Gasp, 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 gasp. After a moment of silence, the sound of people inhaling sharply rang in the air again. It did not stop for a long time. With a wave of his hand, another person was killed. When the group of people looked at Duan Lingtian again, there was only fear in their eyes. Fortunately, he didn't kill me. Jiang Qin, who was standing in the distance, saw Duan Lingtian killing Dong Lin without saying a word. When he recalled how Duan Lingtian had killed Dong Yuanjin's old servant, Elder Yang, he suddenly realized how lucky he was. Duan Lingtian was a god of death. Duan Ling-tian. Dong Yuanjin's eyes turned red when he saw his son being killed by Duan Lingtian in just a blink of an eye. Killing intent surged out of his body as he said in a low voice, enunciating every syllable that came out of his mouth. His voice was incomparably cold, causing those who heard his voice to feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave, causing many of the spectators to shudder. Duan Lingtian looked at Dong Yuanjin, preparing to kill him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Accompanied by the sound of wind whistling and cranes shrieking, the people present on the scene could only feel a gust of swift wind coming from the depths of the forbidden area of the enforcement hall. It blew so hard that their robes fluttered. At the same time, a vast and majestic aura began to spread out. Most of the people present on the scene were familiar with this majestic aura. It's Lord Hall Master. Many people's eyes lit up. Lord Hall Master has broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Apart from being the Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, Jiang Qin was also at the 5th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Therefore, he could sense the change in Lung Ying's aura from the majestic aura. Compared to before, Lung Ying's aura had also risen by a level. Lung Ying was a powerhouse at the peak of the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage. It was only natural that his aura had risen to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Since Jiang Qin could confirm this, Dong Yuanjin, who was also the Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, and stronger than Jiang Qin, naturally, could sense this as well. Lord Hall Master. In an instant, Dong Yuanjin calmed down and suppressed the anger in his heart. With my strength, it's impossible for me to defeat Duan Lingtian. I can only rely on Lord Hall Master if I want to seek revenge. Dong Yuanjin thought to himself. When Dong Yuanjin sensed Lung Ying's cultivation base had risen to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, he felt as though he was grasping at straws. Lord Hall Master. Not only did Duan Lingtian trespass into the enforcement hall, but he even trespassed into the enforcement hall's forbidden area and killed an elder of the enforcement hall. Lord Hall Master, please uphold justice for the enforcement hall. Dong Yuanjin's shout also contained a rich amount of Saint Qi and spread far and wide. His voice not only spread through the enforcement hall's forbidden area, but it also spread through the entire enforcement hall. Duan Lingtian trespassed into the enforcement hall? Not only did he trespass into the enforcement hall, but he even trespassed into the enforcement hall's forbidden area? He even killed an elder of the enforcement hall? Isn't Duan Lingtian a little too bold? This voice sounds familiar. It sounds like Vice Hall Master Dong's voice. A commotion broke out in the enforcement hall. Although many of them wanted to go to the enforcement hall's forbidden area to join in the fun, they stopped when they thought about the strict rules in the enforcement hall. Don't tell me Duan Lingtian thinks the enforcement hall is the White Tiger Sanctum? Don't tell me he thinks our Lord Hall Master is as weak as the Sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum. That's possible. Humph. Lord Hall Master is not someone the Sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum can compare to. If Lord Hall Master makes a move, he'll be able to defeat the Sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum as well. Similar discussions could be heard everywhere in the enforcement hall. Based on the words of the enforcement hall's elders and disciples, it was obvious they were confident in their hall master. In the enforcement hall's forbidden area, do you think your hall master Lung Ying will be able to save your life? Duan Lingtian looked at Dong Yuanjin with a mocking smile on his face. If that's the case, I'll give you a chance. I won't kill you now. When Hall Master Lung Ying arrives, I'll kill you in front of him. He wanted Dong Yuanjin to know what despair was. Dong Yuanjin felt uneasy when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. How arrogant. As soon as Dong Yuanjin heard Duan Lingtian's words, a furious voice rang in the air from the forbidden area of the enforcement hall. Chapter 2185. How arrogant. At the same time, another figure appeared out of thin air in Duan Lingtian's line of sight. Although the figure was quite a distance away, Duan Lingtian could still tell it was an old man. In just a blink of an eye, the old man appeared in front of Duan Lingtian. He glared at Duan Lingtian fiercely. The old man looked very unkempt. His clothes were untidy, and he looked like an old beggar. However, when the old man who looked like an old beggar appeared in front of Duan Lingtian, everyone present on the scene was filled with respect. Lord Hall Master. Many Dao venerables cried out in unison. They clearly entered Duan Lingtian's ears. Duan Lingtian immediately recognized the unkempt old man. The old man was none other than the Hall Master of the enforcement hall, Lung Ying. Congratulations, Lord Hall Master. You've successfully broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, the heaven-defying form. From now on, you'll live as long as heaven and earth. Jiang Qin, one of the Vice Hall Masters of the enforcement hall, took the initiative to congratulate Lung Ying. A hint of excitement could be heard in his voice when he congratulated Lung Ying. There was finally a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage in the enforcement hall. Congratulations, Lord Hall Master. Dong Yuanjin, who was also a Vice Hall Master of the enforcement hall, and another Vice Hall Master of the enforcement hall, who had come early in the morning to watch the show, also congratulated Lung Ying after Jiang Qin spoke first. Since Jiang Qin had discovered that the Hall Master of the enforcement hall had broken through to the 7th form, it was only natural that the Vice Hall Masters of the enforcement hall had discovered it as well. The few Vice Hall Masters of the enforcement hall congratulated Lung Ying for breaking through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. An uproar broke out among the people present on the scene. The Hall Master of the enforcement hall had broken through to the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage, the heaven-defying form? Lord Hall Master has broken through? Since the Vice Hall Masters have congratulated the Hall Master, this matter should be true. Lord Hall Master's breakthrough means there's a fifth powerhouse at the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage in the Zoroastrianism. The Enforcement Hall finally has a powerhouse at the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage. After whispering to each other for a while, the people present all congratulated the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, Lung Ying, for making a breakthrough in his cultivation. The gazes with which the group looked at Lung Ying became even more respectful. A powerhouse whose cultivation base was at the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage, the heaven-defying form, would not only possess extraordinary strength, but they would also have an endless lifespan. They would live as long as heaven and earth and shine as brightly as the sun and moon. Facing everyone's congratulations, Icehawk nodded and smiled in response. Jiang Qin, why are you in such a sorry state? Lung Ying asked with a frown when he saw Jiang Qin was in a wretched state. He was even more disheveled than him. Before Jiang Qin could reply, Dong Yuanjin had already said to Lung Ying, Lord Hall Master, Vice Hall Master Jiang was injured by Duan Lingtian. Moreover, my son Dong Lin, an elder of the Enforcement Hall, was also killed by Duan Lingtian. He died without a complete corpse. Dong Yuanjin's tone was filled with endless anger as he spoke. His eyes were wide open and bloodshot, as if they were filled with blood. Dong Lin was his only son. Dong Yuanjin had put in a lot of effort into Dong Lin. However, all his efforts were in vain, because Dong Lin was killed by Duan Lingtian. To be able to injure Vice Hall Master Jiang to such a state, it seems like Duan Lingtian must have had a fortuitous encounter in recent years. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to become so strong in such a short time. Lung Ying thought to himself when he heard Dong Yuanjin's words. You're the true disciple Duan Lingtian? When Lung Ying's gaze landed on Duan Lingtian again, the smile on his face had disappeared. It was replaced by a cold expression, as though he was unapproachable. You're the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, Lung Ying? Duan Lingtian did not reply to Lung Ying's question. Instead, he mimicked Lung Ying's question. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, Lung Ying's expression darkened. How dare you? Dong Yuanjin, who was standing nearby, was the first to step forward. He glared at Duan Lingtian as he shouted, Duan Lingtian, do you really think you can do whatever you want in the Enforcement Hall, just because you're stronger than Vice Hall Master Jiang? A true disciple like you has no right to be so presumptuous in front of the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, Lord Lung Ying. When Dong Yuanjin saw Lung Ying, the uneasiness that rose in his heart because of Duan Lingtian disappeared. In his opinion, Lung Ying was not weak at all. With the current strength of the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, he could easily crush Duan Lingtian. Even though Dong Yuanjin was shouting hysterically, he was ignored by Duan Lingtian. No matter how loudly he shouted, Duan Lingtian did not even look at him from the beginning until the end. Duan Lingtian, how dare you? Lung Ying's expression darkened when he heard Dong Yuanjin's words. He said coldly to Duan Lingtian, according to the sect's rules, killing a fellow disciple is punishable by death. Duan Lingtian, since you've entered the Enforcement Hall today, don't even think about leaving alive. Lung Ying's words left no room for doubt. Based on his words, it was as though he intended to kill Duan Lingtian. Lord Hall Master. At this moment, the Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall looked at Lung Ying and reminded him through voice transmission. Duan Lingtian was personally invited back by Lord Sect Leader 3 days ago. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for us to execute him before we obtain Lord Sect Leader's permission. Lord Sect Leader personally issued a declaration 3 days ago? What declaration? Lung Ying was unaware of this since he had been in closed-door cultivation recently. However, after the Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall explained through voice transmission, Lung Ying finally understood what had happened. He suddenly realized something. Indeed, it would not be appropriate for them to execute Duan Lingtian before they obtained Lord Sect Leader's permission from Zoroastrianism. Lord Sect Leader must have issued such a declaration because he wants to use the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet, in Duan Lingtian's possession when the devil clans invade the upper province. If I execute Duan Lingtian, the devil seal tablet that Duan Lingtian hid outside might be sealed. That would ruin Lord Sect Leader's plan. Leng Ying made up his mind when he thought of this. He could punish Duan Lingtian, but he could not execute Duan Lingtian. Hall Master Leng Ying, we'll have to see if you're capable of keeping me here. Duan Lingtian said nonchalantly with a smile on his face when he heard Leng Ying's words. Based on his words, it was clear he did not take Leng Ying, the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, seriously. Leng Ying was stunned when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. He did not expect Duan Lingtian would dare to speak to him in such a manner. He was a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage now. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he looked at Dong Yuanjin, the Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, and said coldly, Dong Yuanjin, I've already told you. Dong Yuanjin, I told you just now that I'll kill you in front of Hall Master Leng Ying, whom you see as your savior. Before that happens, I'll show you what despair is. Duan Lingtian's voice turned colder and colder when he reached the end of his sentence. Lord Hall Master, Duan Lingtian is too arrogant. First, he killed an elder of the Enforcement Hall. And now he wants to kill me, the Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall. Dong Yuanjin's expression changed drastically when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. At the same time, he did not forget to look at Leng Ying and complain. Meanwhile, Leng Ying was also infuriated by Duan Lingtian's words. He was so angry that his body began to tremble violently. Arrogant. Arrogant. Leng Ying muttered to himself. Then he glared at Duan Lingtian and said, Duan Lingtian, since Lord Sect Leader personally invited you back, I'll spare your life today. However, you won't be able to escape punishment even if you don't die. Today, you'll be punished by the Enforcement Hall. Elementary devouring tactic. As soon as Leng Ying spoke, Duan Lingtian cast the elementary devouring tactic and devoured all the heaven and earth spirit energy in his surroundings. In just a blink of an eye, his Sun Saint origin was raised to its limit. Swoosh. As soon as Leng Ying finished speaking, the 1,000 inscriptions Saint sword that had appeared in his hand at some point left his hand. All that was left was the sound of the sword whistling in the air. The fleeting sword light swept across the sky like a meteor streaking across the night sky. Crack. Stop. A voice that sounded like something was being cut off rang in the air almost at the same time. The voice entered everyone's ears, causing their hearts to tremble involuntarily. When everyone turned to look at the source of the voice, they saw Dong Yuanjin's arm had been cut off. One of Dong Yuanjin's arms had been severed by Duan Lingtian's 1,000 inscriptions Saint sword. Blood was still spurting out of his severed arm. Duan Lingtian's sword was so fast that Leng Ying only managed to react when Dong Yuanjin's arm was cut off. Needless to say, the others were stunned as well. As for Dong Yuanjin, he was so stunned that he forgot about the pain in his arm. Leng Ying, the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, was a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, and yet, Duan Lingtian had cut off Dong Yuanjin's arm? Moreover, from the beginning until the end, Leng Ying seemed to be slow to react. Duan Lingtian's strength. Could it be that he's comparable to a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage? Chapter 2186. From the beginning, Dong Yuanjin's understanding of Duan Lingtian's strength was only at the peak of the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage. He was on par with the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall. When he discovered that the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall had broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, he instinctively thought the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall could easily suppress Duan Lingtian. However, from the looks of it, he seemed to have been wrong from the beginning. Duan Lingtian's strength was not just at the peak of the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage. If Duan Lingtian's strength was only at the peak of the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage, how could he sever Duan Lingtian's arm under the watchful eyes of the Enforcement Hall's Hall Master? Even the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall did not have time to react. Hall Master! In the blink of an eye, Dong Yuanjin only had time to stop the bleeding from his severed arm. He didn't even dare to reach out to catch his falling arm as he immediately flew away. He only heaved a sigh of relief when he stood behind the hall master of the enforcement hall, Icy Eagle. To him, the hall leader of the law enforcement hall, Lung Ying, was his last hope. If Hall Master Lung Ying couldn't protect him, then he would definitely die today. Duan Lingtian. At the same time, the hall master of the enforcement hall, Lung Ying, suddenly shouted. His voice was filled with extreme anger. Immediately afterwards, a vast amount of Saint Qi burst out from Lung Ying's body like a bolt of lightning, exuding a terrifying aura that set off a storm, causing the robes of everyone present to flap wildly. Some of the weaker cultivators were blown away by the gusts of wind and retreated far away. This is the strength of a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. When the people who had retreated looked at the hall master of the enforcement hall, Lung Ying, again, other than shock, there was only respect in their eyes. The hall master is angry. At the same time, they could clearly sense the change in Lung Ying's emotions. Lung Ying looked at Duan Lingtian with an increasingly cold gaze. Duan Lingtian had actually dared to chop off the arm of one of his deputy hall masters right under his nose. This had completely infuriated him. Even though Duan Lingtian's sword was very strong, it was not to the extent that he was afraid of it. If it was before today, facing Duan Lingtian, who could display that sword move, he might not dare to act rashly out of fear. Today, his cultivation base had successfully broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. With the various divine abilities that he had mastered, he was confident that he was stronger than Hong Yun, one of the 3 guardians of Zoroastrianism. He was confident he could easily deal with ordinary powerhouses at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. As for why he didn't react in time just now, it was because he was caught off guard. He didn't expect Duan Lingtian to attack without any warning. By the time he regained his senses and wanted to save Dong Yuanjin, it was already too late. Whoosh! With a shout, Lung Ying moved as well. Boom! As soon as he moved, it was as if he was breaking the earth, causing an earth-shattering bang to resound from the void, causing those who heard the sound to feel deafened. Some of the people with a weaker cultivation base had their eardrums ruptured, causing blood to flow out of their ears. On the other side, when Lung Ying made his move, his figure flew out with the help of his movement divine ability. He also cast his assist-type divine ability immediately, allowing his saint origin to further improve in a short time. In the end, his saint origin was not far from the saint origin of a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Apart from that, a 7-foot-long spear had appeared in his hand. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The long spear shook and the body of the spear immediately began to tremble violently. The frequency was so fast that it caused waves of buzzing sounds to be emitted in the air. A destructive aura spread in the air. 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon. Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes. He was certain the 7-foot-long spear in Lung Ying's hand was 1,000 inscriptions saint weapon. Duan Lingtian, although I don't know how you managed to become as strong as a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage in just a few years, if you think you can do as you please in the enforcement hall with just that little bit of strength, you're gravely mistaken. Lung Ying's cold words entered the ears of the people in the surroundings. Many of them felt as though they had fallen into an ice cave. Some of the people with a weaker cultivation base felt as though winter had arrived. Lung Ying's words were accompanied by his swift movements, and the 1,000 inscriptions saint spear in his hand that looked like a swimming dragon. Swoosh! The 1,000 inscriptions saint spear shot out like a furious dragon with its mouth wide open as it pounced toward Duan Lingtian. It was as though it was going to devour Duan Lingtian. The furious dragon swept across the sky, shattering the earth and shocking the heavens. It was as if the heavens and earth had lost their color at this moment. No wonder he's so confident. The hall master of the enforcement hall is definitely stronger than Guardian Hong Yun. The reason for this is because the various divine abilities that he has mastered are much stronger than the various divine abilities that Guardian Hong Yun has mastered. He might not be a match for Guardian Hong Yun before he broke through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. However, Now that he has broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, I'm sure Guardian Hong Yun won't be a match for him. Duan Lingtian finally realized where Lung Ying's confidence came from when he saw Lung Ying making his move. He compared Hong Yun, one of the 3 great guardians of Zoroastrianism, whom he had defeated, to Lung Ying, the hall master of the enforcement hall. He discovered Lung Ying was much stronger than Hong Yun. At the very least, the current Frigid Eagle was slightly stronger than Protector Hong Yun. No wonder he dares to make a move on me, even though he has just broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, after I displayed strength comparable to a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, and severed one of Dong Yuanjin's arms. As it turns out, his confidence comes from the various divine abilities he has mastered. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's questions were answered. The strength of a powerhouse at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage depended on the various divine abilities he had mastered. If one had powerful divine abilities and powerful martial tactics, one would be able to unleash greater strength. If one were to compare the various divine abilities to a foundation, Lung Ying's foundation was shockingly solid. No wonder he's widely acknowledged as the strongest person below the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage in Zoroastrianism. Lung Ying, the hall master of the enforcement hall, is indeed extraordinary. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. As Lung Ying charged forward, the 1,000 inscription saint spear in his hand began to spin like the impact drill on earth where Duan Lingtian was from in his past life. Moreover, it was spinning faster and faster. Wherever it passed, the void would emit a piercing buzzing sound. Lung Ying was like a god of spears as he charged toward Duan Lingtian with his spear. Amidst the flashes of lightning, Duan Lingtian's mind flashed one thought after another. Lung Ying's offensive martial tactic is not far from the peak of ordinary martial tactics in the mundane realms. Coupled with his offensive divine ability, I'm afraid not many people below the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage would dare to take his attack head-on. At some point in time, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed further into slits. A sharp light flashed between his eyes like a swimming dragon, as if it would never know fatigue. The hall master is getting serious. At the same time, the expressions of the vice hall masters of the enforcement hall, including Jiang Qin, turned solemn. They could see their hall master was going all out. In the past, they would have been told. To think that their hall master of the enforcement hall would go all out against a personal disciple, even if they were beaten to death, they would never believe that such a ridiculous thing would happen. But now the truth was right before their eyes. Even if they didn't want to believe it, they had no choice but to believe it. Lord Hall Master, Dong Yuanjin, one of the vice hall masters of the enforcement hall, who was standing behind Lung Ying, looked at the scene before him with a hopeful expression. He prayed that his hall master would be able to defeat and kill Duan Lingtian. It would be fine if Lung Ying won this battle. However, if Duan Lingtian won, he would be doomed eternally. I hate this. Why didn't I kill him myself back then? At this moment, Dong Yuanjin's heart was filled with regret. Once upon a time, Duan Lingtian was merely an ant in his eyes. At that time, he even felt that killing Duan Lingtian was an insult to his hands. However, the person who was like an ant in his eyes now possessed a strength that could completely suppress him. If the heavens gave him another chance to go back to a few years ago, he would definitely not hesitate to pay any price to personally kill Duan Lingtian, so as to avoid future troubles. Unfortunately, it was just wishful thinking. At this moment, he could only place his hopes on Lung Ying, the hall master of the enforcement hall. He hoped that Lung Ying would be able to defeat Duan Lingtian. Otherwise, he would be doomed. Hall Master Lung Ying, your attack is indeed extraordinary. I'm afraid not many people below the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage would dare to take your attack head-on. Duan Lingtian's voice sounded abruptly and clearly entered into everyone's ears. Unfortunately, I, Duan Lingtian, am not one of those who would dare to take your attack head-on. Duan Lingtian blurted out these 2 sentences in a split second. Chapter 2187. Heaven Flying Immortal. As soon as Duan Ling Tian's Sun Saint origin, that had been raised to its limit by the divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, surged into the 1,000 inscription Saint Sword, his figure flashed again as he cast the sword offensive divine ability he had not mastered for a long time. One had to know that Duan Ling Tian had never used this ability, even when he was fighting one of the 3 guardians of Zoroastrianism, Hong Yun. From this, it can be seen that the pressure that the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, Icy Eagle, gave him was far greater than the pressure that Hong Yun gave him. Otherwise, there was no need for him to cast this divine ability. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Duan Ling Tian, who was holding the 1,000 inscription Saint Sword, created several clones that looked exactly like him. In just a blink of an eye, the few Duan Ling Tian that appeared out of thin air stunned everyone present. After Duan Ling Tian's doppelgangers appeared, they didn't split up and stayed together. Judging from their postures, they had no intention of splitting up. Imperial Sword Technique. The moment the doppelgangers appeared, Duan Ling Tian used the 3rd stage of the Supreme Sword Dao Mental Cultivation Method, Sovereign Heart Sword, to control the sword with the heart. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In just a blink of an eye, the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Swords in the hands of Duan Ling Tian's true body, and his clone shot out toward the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Spear in Lung Ying's hand that was charging toward him like a raging dragon. When the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Swords flew out, they lined up neatly in a straight line. They looked like a few well-arranged soldiers. In just a blink of an eye, the first 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword and the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Spear collided. Chi, chi, chi. In the beginning, when the 2 forces collided, it did not cause too much of a commotion. It only emitted a series of rapid friction sounds as the first wave of almost silent confrontation was carried out. The next moment, all of a sudden, boom, an earth-shattering sound rang out from nowhere. It was deafening, causing the hearts of everyone present to involuntarily pause. Boom, 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 boom. After that earth-shattering explosion, a series of earth-shattering explosions followed, and they didn't stop for a long time. It was Duan Ling Tian's first 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword and Lung Ying's 1,000 inscriptions Saint Spear clashing fiercely. 2 majestic forces collided and exploded, causing the surrounding air to stagnate. Even space seemed to tremble violently at this moment. Waves of rolling airwaves swept out. Gusts of wild wind also began to wreak havoc in all directions. In the end, it was Duan Ling Tian's first 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword that was defeated by Eagle's 1,000 inscriptions Saint Spear. After being defeated, the 1,000 inscriptions Sacred Sword shattered and disappeared without a trace. It was only a clone of the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword. The otherworldly celestial was a sword-type divine ability. Once it was cast, not only would Duan Ling Tian create a clone, but even the sword in his hand would create a clone as well. Naturally, the clone's power was not as strong as the sword's main body. When Duan Ling Tian's first clone of the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword exhausted a portion of the energy in Eagle's 1,000 inscriptions Saint Spear, whoosh, whoosh, another 2 sword cries reverberated in the air. The other 2 clones of the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword charged out as well, exhausting the energy in Eagle's 1,000 inscriptions Saint Spear. There's no need to use the 4th clone of the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword anymore. At the same time, Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. The 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword at the back of the neat formation suddenly sped up and overtook the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword in front of it as it charged toward Eagle. This 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword was its main body. Whoosh! As soon as the main body of the 1,000 inscriptions Saint Sword appeared, the sword cries only lasted for a brief moment. The moment the sword ray touched the raging energy in Eagle's 1,000 inscriptions Saint Spear, Eagle's expression changed drastically as he panicked. How can it be so strong? This was because Eagle was shocked to discover that the sword ray was stronger than before. Compared to the previous 2 streaks of sword light, the sword light that was rushing over was not just a little bit stronger. Oh no! In the blink of an eye, Lung Ying discovered that the flash of sword light had destroyed the vast power contained in his 1,000 inscription saint's spear, like it was breaking a twig. His saint origin gushed out of his body and poured into the 1,000 inscription saint's spear in his hand. Even so, it did not have much of an effect. Duan Lingtian had completely gained the upper hand in his attack. He took advantage of the situation and destroyed Eagle's counterattack. Boom, 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 boom. Another deafening explosion reverberated in the air. The void seemed to tremble violently, as though it would collapse at any time. Duan Lingtian's 1,000 inscriptions saint sword seemed to contain invincible energy, as it destroyed the energy in Eagle's 1,000 inscriptions saint spear. With a clang, the 1,000 inscriptions saint spear was sent flying. The moment the 1,000 inscriptions saint spear left Lung Ying's hand, the web between his thumb and index finger on his right hand cracked open, revealing a hideous crack. Blood splattered everywhere, dazzling to the eye. Barf! Eagle's body trembled violently as his face turned pale. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Before the 1,000 inscriptions saint spear was sent flying, the energy that entered his body from the spear had injured his internal organs, causing him to suffer severe internal injuries. Golden Crow's wings. As soon as Lung Ying spat out blood, a pair of flaming wings sprouted from Duan Lingtian's back. Duan Lingtian activated the wings and flew toward Lung Ying at a ridiculous speed. In just a blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Lung Ying. Bang! As Duan Lingtian raised his hand, a palm print that was as heavy as a mountain landed on Eagle's chest, sending him flying before he could even catch his breath. Eagle instantly flew out in a wretched manner, like an arrow that was shot out from a bow. Along the way, he continued to spit out mouthfuls of blood that was so red that it was almost black. Whoosh! At the same time, Duan Lingtian raised his hand and retrieved the 1,000 inscriptions saint sword that flew away after sending Eagle's 1,000 inscriptions saint spear flying. Then he put it away in his spatial ring. In the next moment, he calmly hovered in the air as he looked at Lung Ying, who had just barely managed to regain his footing after flying a distance away. Hall Master Lung Ying, do you still want to stop me from killing Dong Yuanjin? The moment his words left his mouth, Duan Lingtian's gaze turned cold as he said in a deep voice without waiting for Lung Ying's response. He said in a deep voice, "Let me make this clear. If you make a move again, I won't show you any mercy." Although Duan Lingtian's voice was not loud, everyone present on the scene clearly heard his words, causing their hearts to tremble. How terrifying! How could Duan Lingtian's strength be so strong? Even our Hall Master, who has broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, isn't a match for him. What fortuitous encounter did he have during these few years? Don't tell me the rumor about him killing the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 great Karmapa of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, is true? He killed the Golden Lion King with 3 strikes. It seems like he only used 3 strikes to defeat Lord Hall Master. Everyone regained their senses one after another. When they looked at Duan Lingtian again, their faces were filled with shock and disbelief. Those who were whispering among themselves were even more cautious. It was as though they were afraid of angering Duan Lingtian if they were too loud. How's this possible? Dong Yuanjin's expression changed drastically when he saw Duan Lingtian defeating the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, Lung Ying, with his own eyes. A hint of despair could be seen in his eyes. He did not expect Duan Lingtian to be so strong. He did not expect Duan Lingtian to be so strong. Even Hall Master Lung Ying, the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, was no match for Duan Lingtian after he had broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, the heaven-defying form. Duan Lingtian. At the same time, Lung Ying, the Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, whose face was as pale as a sheet, finally managed to catch his breath. When he heard Duan Lingtian's words, he looked at Duan Lingtian and said in a deep voice, I admit I'm not as strong as you. However, do you think you can do whatever you want in Zoroastrianism with your strength? There are rules in Zoroastrianism. Aren't you afraid Lord Sect Leader will punish you for doing this? Lung Ying mentioned the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, who had broken through to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, the Celestial Ascension form. Trying to escape? As soon as Lung Ying finished speaking, Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, tried to flee. Duan Lingtian did not even have time to respond to Leng Ying. Duan Lingtian immediately flapped his golden crow's wings that he did not have time to retract. Whoosh! In just a blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian seemed to have transformed into a gust of wind as he blocked Dong Yuanjin's path of escape. Dong Yuanjin was so shocked that he came to a halt. His expression changed drastically when Duan Lingtian said indifferently, "Didn't you see the hall master of the enforcement hall as your savior? What do you think now? Moreover, I've said that I'll kill Dong Yuanjin in front of hall master Leng Ying." Before Duan Lingtian could finish his sentence, Dong Yuanjin had already fallen to his knees in the air. His body was trembling as he cried out, "Duan Lingtian, please spare me. Please spare me. You've already killed my unfilial son. There's no enmity between us. Let's just forget about it. What do you think? I beg you. I beg you. I beg you." Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, lowered his head in despair when he was faced with the threat of death. He even knelt in front of Duan Lingtian, whom he had previously regarded as an ant, and begged for mercy. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. He had to survive. Shame. He's a disgrace to the enforcement hall. Chapter 2188. There's no enmity between us? Duan Lingtian could not help but laugh when he heard Dong Yuanjin's words. You ordered someone to kill me, and you're saying there's no enmity between us? Or perhaps, you think it's because of your son Dong Lin, so there's no enmity between us? Yes. Dong Yuanjin hurriedly nodded in response. Dong Yuanjin, if you had the courage to die standing, I might have respected you. But now, Duan Lingtian said indifferently. Before he could finish speaking, he made his move again. Whoosh! As Duan Lingtian raised his hand, the vast Sun Saint origin in his body surged into his hand. As he raised his hand, it transformed into a palm seal that shot toward Dong Yuanjin. No. By the time Dong Yuanjin regained his senses, Duan Lingtian's palm seal was already inches away from him. As soon as he finished speaking, the palm seal landed on his body. Bang! A loud explosion rang in the air as Duan Lingtian killed Dong Yuanjin with just a palm strike. Instantly, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. Although everyone present was mentally prepared for this scene, they were still shocked when they saw it. They could not help but tremble in fear when they saw Duan Lingtian killing Dong Yuanjin with just a flip of his palm. Dong Yuanjin was the vice hall master of the enforcement hall. His status was comparable to a golden flame elder in Zoroastrianism. His son Dong Lin could not compare to him at all. However, Duan Lingtian had killed someone like that just like that. Duan Lingtian, I'll personally look for Lord Sect Leader and ask him to seek justice for the enforcement hall. Leng Ying, the hall master of the enforcement hall, looked at Duan Lingtian coldly when he saw Duan Lingtian had killed Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall. If looks could kill, Duan Lingtian would have died many times over. As you wish. However, when Duan Lingtian heard Frigid Eagle's words, he shrugged nonchalantly, as though he wasn't afraid that Frigid Eagle would complain to the leader of Zoroastrianism. In fact, he wasn't afraid at all. Humph! Leng Ying snorted coldly when he saw this. He took to the air and flew towards the Saint Island, disappearing into the clouds in the blink of an eye. Behind the clouds was the cultivation ground of the leader of Zoroastrianism, Jiang Qin. After Leng Ying left, Duan Lingtian's gaze once again landed on Jiang Qin. He called out Jiang Qin's name. Jiang Qin was so scared that his body trembled. His face turned pale in an instant. His first thought was that the malefic star didn't like him and wanted to attack him. He could only pray in his heart. He hoped that this fiend would go easy on him. He was already prepared to be tortured. However, in the next moment he realized he was wrong. The malefic star didn't dislike him and wanted to torture him. I want to see Gan Ruyan, Duan Lingtian said nonchalantly as he looked at Jiang Qin. His tone was firm and unquestionable. Gan Ruyan? Jiang Qin's eyes narrowed when he heard Duan Lingtian's words. He instinctively asked, You know Gan Ruyan? She's my friend, Duan Lingtian said as he looked at Jiang Qin deeply. Jiang Qin was stunned. He felt as though he was struck by lightning. Duan Lingtian was friends with Gan Ruyan? He vaguely realized something was amiss. The reason Duan Lingtian taught him a lesson earlier was most likely not because he didn't like him. It was because of his actions that caused Gan Ruyan to be imprisoned in the law enforcement hall. Jiang Qin was the one who dealt with the matter impartially. However, it was understandable that Duan Lingtian stood up for his friend. Lead the way, Duan Lingtian said impatiently when he saw Jiang Qin was stunned, and did not say anything for a long time. Duan Lingtian's voice instantly woke Jiang Qin up. He immediately looked at Duan Lingtian and said with a wry smile, Gan Ruyan's matter is a little complicated. However, she was taken away from the law enforcement hall by the sect leader not long ago. Taken away by the sect leader? Duan Lingtian frowned and asked in a deep voice, what happened? After witnessing Duan Lingtian killing Dong Yuanjin with his own eyes, Jiang Qin knew it would only take a few minutes for Duan Lingtian to kill him. For this reason, he did not dare to neglect Duan Lingtian's question, and hastily replied, I heard the saint girl ask the sect leader to take her away. As for the other details, I don't know. Saint girl? Duan Lingtian's frown deepened. Which saint girl? He thought Jiang Qin was referring to his wife Kerr. However, when he thought about it, he felt that was not right. After all, Kerr was also in the law enforcement hall. Moreover, based on Jiang Qin's words, Gan Ruyan's departure was requested by the saint girl. Although Jiang Qin's wife Kerr was once the saint of Zoroastrianism, she was now a sinner. It was impossible for her to request anything from the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. Even if she did, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism would not pay any attention to her. Jiang Qin, be careful with your words. When the other vice hall master of the law enforcement hall saw Jiang Qin publicly announcing the saintess in front of everyone, he could not help but exclaim in a low voice as his expression changed. After all, only a handful of people in the Zoroastrianism knew about the saint girl being taken away from the law enforcement hall by the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. Although the sect leader did not warn them not to spread the news, they were not allowed to do so. However, even if the sect leader did not warn them, it was still inconvenient for them to publicize the matter. Everyone in the Zoroastrianism knew that the saint girl who had been missing for many years was a sinner. She was imprisoned in the law enforcement hall, and was waiting for the sect leader to sentence her after he came out of his closed-door cultivation. Although the sect leader had come out of his closed-door cultivation, he did not sentence the saint girl. Not only did he not sentence the saint girl, but he also did not sentence her. Not only that, but he even took the saint girl away from the law enforcement hall. If news of this spread out, it would definitely affect the reputation of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. After all, there would definitely be people who would secretly say that the sect leader of Zoroastrianism had abused his power for personal gain, and took the lead in ignoring the rules of the sect. Although the sect leader of Zoroastrianism could completely ignore the rules of the sect, due to his position in the Zoroastrianism, if news of this spread out, the reputation of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism would definitely be affected. As one of the three great sects in the Tao Martial Saint Land, and one of the top 3 forces in the Tao Martial Saint Land, the sect of Zoroastrianism valued its reputation very much. I can't believe I forgot about this. When Jiang Qin heard the reminder from the other vice hall master of the law enforcement hall, horror dawned on him immediately. Earlier, when he faced Duan Lingtian, there was only fear left in his heart. Due to this reason, he did not think about anything else when he heard Duan Lingtian's question, and answered honestly. Now that he heard the reminder from the other vice hall master of the law enforcement hall, he realized he had acted rashly. Saint girl? Which saint girl? Due to this reason, he did not answer Duan Lingtian's question. Humph! Duan Lingtian scoffed when he saw Jiang Qin did not answer him. It shocked Jiang Qin so much that his heart skipped a beat. He instantly wanted to send a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian to explain. However, before Jiang Qin could send a voice transmission, he saw Duan Lingtian's figure flashed, and disappeared from his spot. When he reappeared, he was already standing in front of the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, who warned him, "Since you don't want him to say it, you'll have to say it." Duan Lingtian said coldly, as he looked at the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, with a piercing gaze. At the same time, a vast and powerful killing intent surged out of his body, and shrouded the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. The Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall did not even dream that his warning to Jiang Qin would bring about such an unexpected calamity. When he heard Duan Lingtian's cold and indifferent words, when he felt the killing intent that enveloped him, and when he thought of Duan Lingtian's previous actions, in the end he gave in. Saint Girl. She's referring to the missing saint girl of Zoroastrianism. She's the one who asked Lord Sect Leader to take Gan Ruyin away from our law enforcement hall. Naturally, the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall did not say it out loud. Instead, he sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian could not help but frown when he heard the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall's words. He said in a deep voice, "Don't try to lie to me. As far as I know, the Saint Girl is also imprisoned in the Law Enforcement Hall. Are you telling me she's the one who asked Lord Sect Leader to take Gan Ruyin away from the Law Enforcement Hall?" "I'm not lying to you, and I don't dare to lie to you." The Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall hurriedly sent a voice transmission to Duan Lingtian. "The Saint Girl is no longer in our Law Enforcement Hall." As time passed, Duan Lingtian learned about the whereabouts of Kerr and her mother from the Vice Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall. They're actually at the cultivation place of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. Gan Ruyin is there as well. Duan Lingtian did not expect this at all. His wife and daughter, whom he wanted to see even in his dreams, were actually at the place he had just been to. Naturally, he could not say that he had been there. He could only say that he had been there for a while. That place was none other than the cultivation place of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. In the sky above the Saint Island, there was an island hidden behind the clouds. If that's the case, they must have heard me talking to the sect leader of fire worship sect earlier? Duan Lingtian's breathing quickened when he thought of this. Whoosh! When Duan Lingtian learned that Kerr and her mother were not in the law enforcement hall, and were at the cultivation place of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, he immediately rose into the air and flew in the direction Snow Eagle, the hall master of the law enforcement hall, had left. Duan Lingtian flew through the clouds and arrived at the cultivation place of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. He happened to see Snow Eagle complaining to the sect leader of Zoroastrianism loudly. Chapter 2189. Lord Sect Leader, please uphold justice for the enforcement hall. Lung Ying enunciated each and every word as he looked at the place where the sect leader of Zoroastrianism cultivated. His voice was laced with anger. Naturally, his anger was not directed at the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. Instead, it was directed at Duan Lingtian, who had killed Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall. As soon as Lung Ying finished speaking, he noticed Duan Lingtian had followed him. He looked at Duan Lingtian and said with a sneer, "Duan Lingtian, didn't you say that I could do whatever I wanted? What's wrong? Are you afraid now?" When Lung Ying saw Duan Lingtian following him, he thought Duan Lingtian was worried that he would complain to the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. "Don't flatter yourself." Duan Lingtian glanced at Lung Ying indifferently. "I'm here for something else." As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, Lung Ying's expression darkened. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew in the air as Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, appeared before Duan Lingtian and Lung Ying. It was as though he had appeared out of thin air like a ghost. "Lord Sect Leader." Lung Ying bowed respectfully when he saw Tang Xian, sect leader. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian merely nodded at Tang Xian and greeted him casually. Compared to Tang Xian's servile attitude, Duan Lingtian was much more casual. Initially, Lung Ying thought Duan Lingtian was going to be in trouble when he saw Duan Lingtian being so rude to Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. He could not help but gloat at Duan Lingtian's misfortune. However, When he saw Tang Xian nodding at Duan Lingtian in a friendly manner, and was not angered by Duan Lingtian's rudeness, he was dumbfounded. As far as he knew, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism didn't seem to be that easy to talk to, right? Could it be that the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism had changed after breaking through to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage? Hall Master Lung, congratulations on successfully breaking through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Tang Xian nodded at Duan Lingtian in a friendly manner before he looked at Lung Ying and said, according to the rules passed down by Zoroastrianism since ancient times, all Zoroastrians who have broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage will be promoted to Guardian. From this moment onwards, Hall Master Lung, you are not only the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall, but also the 5th Guardian of the Zoroastrianism, Tang Xian announced when he reached the end of his sentence. Lung Ying was slightly excited when he heard Tang Xian's words. After all, he had worked so hard all this time for the sake of becoming a guardian of the Zoroastrianism. A guardian of the Zoroastrianism sect was second only to one person in Zoroastrianism. This had always been Lung Ying's goal. For this reason, he was extremely excited when Tang Xian announced that he would become a guardian of the Zoroastrianism sect. However, when he heard the latter part of Tang Xian's sentence, he could not help but be stunned. Fifth guardian? Icehawk stared at Tang Xian in shock, unable to react in time. As far as he knew, there were only 3 guardians of the Zoroastrianism sect. Now that his cultivation base had broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, it was only natural for him to become a guardian of the Zoroastrianism sect. However, if he became a guardian of the Zoroastrianism sect, shouldn't he be the 4th guardian of the Zoroastrianism sect? Tang Xian seemed to have noticed Lung Ying's confusion. He immediately looked at Duan Lingtian and introduced him to Lung Ying. Before you, the Zoroastrianism sect has already produced a 4th guardian. He's none other than Lingtian. Initially, I planned to announce to the Zoroastrianism sect that we have a 4th guardian in 3 days. However, it seems like not only will we have a 4th guardian, but we'll also have a 5th guardian in 3 days. At that time, not only the Zoroastrianism sect, but the entire western region and the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land will know that we have 2 guardians. The smile on Tang Xian's face grew wider and wider as he spoke. It was obvious that he was in a very good mood. Guardian? Lingtian? Lung Ying's eyes widened when he heard Tang Xian's words. He instinctively looked at Duan Lingtian in shock and disbelief. However, when he thought about how Duan Lingtian was much stronger than him, it made sense for him to become a guardian of the Zoroastrianism sect. The reason he did not react in the beginning was because he had regarded Duan Lingtian as a true disciple since the beginning. Although Duan Lingtian was much stronger than him, he did not expect that a true disciple could become a guardian as long as they met the conditions. Yes, Tang Xian nodded before he said, Hall Master Lung, I've learned about what happened in the enforcement hall through my divine consciousness. Guardian Lingtian is only seeking revenge, so it's understandable. After all, it was the Dong clan's father and son who tried to kill him. Let's put this matter to rest. What do you think, Hall Master Lung? Tang Xian glanced at Icehawk as he spoke. Duan Lingtian's heart trembled when he heard Tang Xian's words. As expected, the leader of the Zoroastrianism sect was constantly extending his divine sense to cover the entire Zoroastrianism. Since the sect leader has said so, Lung Ying will naturally obey. After learning that Duan Lingtian had become a guardian of Zoroastrianism, Frigid Eagle knew that his complaint was in vain. As a guardian of Zoroastrianism, he had a certain degree of immunity in Zoroastrianism. Duan Lingtian had a grudge against the Dong father and son. Even if Duan Lingtian didn't have any enmity with the Dong family's father and son, and killed them for no reason, with his identity as a guardian, he could still turn today's matter into a small one, and a small one into nothing. For Zoroastrianism, the importance of a guardian was not something that the father and son of the Dong family could compare to. For people like the father and son of the Dong family, it was insignificant even if there were 4 or 8 of them. However, The loss of a guardian was equivalent to a serious blow to Zoroastrianism. Guardian Ling Tian, Hall Master Lung. Both of you are the pillars of Zoroastrianism. I'll make the decision for today's matter. Both of you will let this matter rest. What do you think? At some point, Tang Xian's gaze had shifted between Duan Ling Tian and Lung Ying. Although his voice sounded calm, there was no room for doubt. Duan Ling Tian and Icehawk could not help but feel chills running down their spines. Sect leader, you're overthinking things. I have no intention of instigating enmity with Hall Master Lung. Duan Ling Tian replied. In fact, he had no intention of instigating enmity with Icehawk. The reason he had a conflict with Icehawk earlier was because Icehawk had interfered in the conflict between him and the father and son of the Dong family. Now that the father and son of the Dong family were dead, he could not be bothered with Icehawk as long as he did not provoke him. Don't worry, sect leader. I know what I'm doing. Following Duan Ling Tian's words, Lung Ying did not dare to hesitate as well. After Icehawk finished speaking, he bade farewell to Tang Xian and left. From the beginning until the end, he did not pay any attention to Duan Ling Tian. It was as though he was unwilling to befriend Duan Ling Tian, even if he did not incur enmity with Duan Ling Tian. His actions were more like a form of silent defiance. Tang Xian frowned when he saw this. In the end, he did not make a move. He could understand Icehawk's feelings. Perhaps, Icehawk could coexist peacefully with Duan Ling Tian now. However, it would take some time for him to get along with Duan Ling Tian. Some things could not be rushed. Guardian Ling Tian, you told Hall Master Lung earlier that you were looking for me? Tang Xian asked as he looked at Duan Ling Tian. Yes. Duan Ling Tian nodded. Then, he went straight to the point and said, Sect leader, I'm friends with Gan Ru Yen, Guardian Qing Hu's direct disciple. I heard that she's currently in your cultivation place. May I know if you can allow her to come out and catch up with me? Guardian Ling Tian, this is only a small matter. Duan Ling Tian's eyes lit up when Tang Xian reached this part of his sentence. A smile appeared on his face. However, Guardian Ling Tian, I'm afraid you've come at a bad time. Recently, Ru Yen has been in closed-door cultivation. Moreover, it's a closed-door cultivation. I'm afraid she won't be coming out anytime soon. For this reason, Guardian Ling Tian, I'm afraid you'll have to wait for a while before you can catch up with her. Duan Ling Tian's eyes widened when he heard Tang Xian's words. The light in his eyes dimmed, and the smile on his face froze. He did not expect Tang Xian to say something like that. Closed-door cultivation? Naturally, he did not believe it. How could there be such a coincidence in the world? However, what could he do even if he did not believe it? At this moment, if he were to be too rash and advance rashly, then it would undoubtedly be counterproductive. Closed-door cultivation? If that's the case, I'll catch up with her after she comes out of closed-door cultivation. Duan Ling Tian tried his best to calm himself down when he spoke again. Since he could not meet Gan Ru Yen, Duan Ling Tian felt helpless, even though he knew his wife and daughter were in the cultivation place of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. It seems like I'll have to think of another way. To avoid arousing Tang Xian's suspicion, Duan Ling Tian bade farewell to Tang Xian before he turned around and left without looking back. Could it be my misperception? Tang Xian could not help but frown slightly when he saw Duan Ling Tian's behavior. It seems like it was just my imagination. The reason I had such an impression is because he's also from the Debussy subterranean, and Gan Ru Yen knows him. Earlier, when Tang Xian had used his divine consciousness to cover the entire Zoroastrianism, he had learned that Duan Ling Tian had gone to the law enforcement hall to look for Gan Ru Yen. He thought of the daughter of the saint of Zoroastrianism, and a man from the lower province. When he first met Duan Ling Tian, he noticed Duan Ling Tian resembled the daughter of the saint of Zoroastrianism. Initially, he did not think much of it. However, when he discovered Duan Ling Tian had gone to the law enforcement hall to look for Gan Ru Yen, a thought appeared in his mind. Chapter 2190. Naturally, Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, only suspected Duan Ling Tian. Everything was too much of a coincidence. When Duan Ling Tian left without any hesitation, Even Tang Xian wondered if he was mistaken. I hope you're not. Otherwise, Tang Xian muttered to himself. A frightening cold light flashed across Tang Xian's eyes as he muttered to himself. The coldness was like a blade that could destroy anything. If Duan Lingtian was just an ordinary true disciple of Zoroastrianism, he could force Duan Lingtian to swear on the lightning penalty oath to verify his suspicions. However, Duan Lingtian was not an ordinary true disciple of Zoroastrianism. He was a guardian of Zoroastrianism. As a guardian, Duan Lingtian was the pillar of Zoroastrianism. Even if Tang Xian suspected Duan Lingtian and was more powerful than Duan Lingtian, he could not force Duan Lingtian to swear on the lightning penalty oath. After all, he was not even sure if his suspicions were correct. It would be fine if he was right. However, if he was wrong, he would disappoint Guardian Lingtian of Zoroastrianism. In fact, Zoroastrianism might even lose this guardian in the future. Moreover, they would lose the super saint weapon, the Devil Seal tablet, that could restrain the devil clans. The devil clans were about to descend. If the Zoroastrianism lost the Devil Seal tablet, it would be equivalent to losing an arm. If it was not necessary, Tang Xian would not allow this to happen. For this reason, Tang Xian would not force Duan Lingtian, who was already a guardian of the fire worship sect, to swear on the lightning penalty oath for something that did not exist before he was completely confident. There's still a long way to go. If he's really the wild man that the saint met in the lower province, he'll reveal himself sooner or later. Tang Xian muttered to himself before he disappeared from where he was and returned to his place of cultivation. Duan Lingtian was unaware of all this. Now that he had left, he was thinking of a way to save Ku-Er and his daughter as soon as possible. He was afraid that something would happen if he delayed. After leaving the place where the sect leader of Zoroastrianism cultivated, Duan Lingtian returned to his residence as a true disciple. Everything was familiar to him. The only difference was that his strength and identity had undergone a tremendous change in the past few years. A few years ago, he did not think he would be so powerful. A few years later, he would possess such strength and become a guardian with a lofty position in the fire worship sect. In the next 3 days, the entire Zoroastrianism was in an uproar because of Duan Lingtian's return, Duan Lingtian's actions in the White Tiger Sanctum, and Duan Lingtian's actions in the Enforcement Hall. Duan Lingtian had returned to Zoroastrianism after a few years. As soon as he returned, he trespassed in the White Tiger Sanctum. When he was stopped by the Sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum, he easily defeated the Sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum. After that, Duan Lingtian trespassed in the Enforcement Hall. First, he killed Elder Dong Lin of the Enforcement Hall. Then he killed Dong Yuanjin, the Vice Hall Master of the Enforcement Hall, in front of Hall Master Lung Ying. Most importantly, Lung Ying's cultivation base had broken through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Once such explosive news spread, it naturally caused a huge commotion. As far as I know, Hall Master Lung Ying of our Enforcement Hall has mastered many divine abilities and techniques. Even Guardian Hong Yun said that she might not be a match for Hall Master Lung Ying once he breaks through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. That's true. I remember Guardian Hong Yun saying that as well. Rumor has it that Duan Lingtian defeated Hall Master Lung Ying with just 3 strikes. He defeated Hall Master Lung Ying with just 3 strikes? It seems like the news from Sin City is true. With senior brother Duan Lingtian's current strength, it's not impossible for him to kill Xie Kong Sun, the Golden Lion King, one of the 4 great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism. That's right. In terms of strength, Xie Kong Sun, the Golden Lion King of Zhuangzi Buddhism, is slightly weaker than Guardian Hong Yun of Zoroastrianism. Since senior brother Duan Lingtian defeated Hall Master Lung Ying with just 3 strikes, it's only natural that he'll be able to kill Hall Master Lung Ying with just 3 strikes. News of Zoroastrianism spread from top to bottom. Up until now, Duan Lingtian had demonstrated his unparalleled strength. I can't believe there's such a person among the true disciples of Zoroastrianism. He's a monster. That's right. In the history of Zoroastrianism, there hasn't been such a powerful true disciple before, right? There is an age limit for true disciples, and Senior Duan Lingtian hasn't exceeded that limit yet. He's already at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage at such a young age. Even if Pei Si Hai, the strongest prodigy in the Dao martial Saint Land, broke through to the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage before the age of 100, he's nothing compared to Senior Brother Lingtian. Right? Humph. Senior Brother Duan Lingtian from our Zoroastrianism is the true number 1 prodigy in the Dao martial Saint Land. At some point, someone had compared Pei Si Hai, the number 1 prodigy in the Dao martial Saint Land, to Duan Lingtian. However, he discovered that, even if Pei Si Hai's cultivation base was at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage, when he was not even 100 years old, it was nothing compared to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian was not even 50 years old, but his cultivation base was already comparable to a powerhouse at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. How could Pei Si Hai compare to him? There was no comparison at all. The number 1 prodigy in the Dao martial Saint Land. For a time, everyone in the Zoroastrianism regarded Duan Lingtian as the number 1 prodigy in the Dao martial Saint Land. The number 1 prodigy in the Dao martial Saint Land? In the cultivation place of Sanctum leader Lu Tai in the Azure Dragon Sanctum, Bu Hong was so angry that he almost fainted when he learned about Duan Lingtian's deeds. He did not expect that Duan Lingtian would be so powerful. The true disciple who had destroyed his innate spiritual root in the past actually possessed such a terrifying strength when he returned. Hong from today onward, you'd better forget about the enmity between you and him. Otherwise, you'll only be asking for trouble. Even Lu Tai, the Sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, had no choice but to lower his head in front of Duan Lingtian. What a joke! Duan Lingtian could suppress the Sanctum leader of the White Tiger Sanctum with just a flip of his palm, let alone someone like him whose strength was only on par with the Sanctum leader of the White Tiger Sanctum. With Duan Lingtian's innate talent, he was already stronger than Lu Tai. He would only be stronger in the future. Moreover, Duan Lingtian's actions in the enforcement hall made Lu Tai realize that Duan Lingtian was not a merciful person. If he and Bu Hong continued to make things difficult for Duan Lingtian, they would most likely end up like the Dong clan's father and son. I understand, Master, Bu Hong said as he lowered his head. However, upon closer inspection, one could see that he was filled with resentment. In his eyes, there was still a strong sense of unwillingness and sternness. 3 days passed in just a blink of an eye. 3 days later, Tang Xian, the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism sect, appeared in the central square of the Saint Island. Naturally, it shocked everyone on the Saint Island. A group of Saint Land disciples swarmed into the central square like a swarm of bees. After all, this was the first time the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism sect had made an appearance after breaking through to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, the Celestial Ascension form. Lord Sect Leader! Lord Sect Leader! The group of Saint Land disciples in the central square was extremely excited when they saw Tang Xian. At the same time, many people noticed 2 people following behind Tang Xian. Those with sharp eyes immediately recognized them. It's Hall Master Lung Ying and Senior Brother Duan Lingtian from the Enforcement Hall. The 2 people standing behind Tang Xian, the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism, were none other than Duan Lingtian and Lung Ying. Silence. After Tang Xian spoke, the huge central square immediately turned completely silent. Not a single sound could be heard. Amidst the silence, Tang Xian went straight to the point and made an announcement. I, Tang Xian, the sect leader of the Zoroastrianism sect, hereby announce that from today onward, the Zoroastrianism sect leader will have 2 new guardians. They will be Guardian Ling Tian and Guardian Lung Ying. Tang Xian's words made it clear to all the Zoroastrianism disciples and high-ranking officials present on the scene. From today onward, the Zoroastrianism sect leader would no longer have 3 guardians. There would be 5 new guardians. As soon as Tang Xian finished speaking, he passed the identity tokens that belonged to the Zoroastrianism guardians to Duan Lingtian and Lung Ying. When the 2 of them were crowned, an uproar broke out among the crowd. The entire place was in an uproar. Many of the people present on the scene were mentally prepared for this. However, They could not help but feel excited when they witnessed this grand occasion. After a while, the high-ranking officials of the Zoroastrianism sect, led by the two vice-sect leaders of the Zoroastrianism sect leaders, also stepped forward to greet and congratulate Duan Lingtian. Greetings, Guardian Lingtian. Congratulations, Guardian Lingtian. Greetings, Guardian Lingtian. Congratulations, Guardian Lingtian. There were many familiar faces among the people who congratulated Duan Lingtian. For example, the Black Turtle Sanctum's Silver Flame elders Guoxiong and Tung Shan, the Palace of Death's custodian Niezue, and some of the Enforcement Hall's elders were standing at the back to congratulate him. The reason they were standing at the back was because their positions were too low compared to the high-ranking officials of the Zoroastrianism sect, who were standing at the front. Apart from the two vice-sect leaders, the rest of the high-ranking officials of the Zoroastrianism sect leaders were all Golden Flame elders. This included Lu Qing, the sanctum leader of the White Tiger Sanctum, and Lu Tai, the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, whom Duan Lingtian had defeated 3 days ago. Duan Lingtian nodded calmly when he heard the greetings and congratulations from the group of people. Although he had a calm expression on his face, he felt as though a lifetime had passed. These people in front of him were people he had to look up to in the past. Chapter 2191. In fact, at this time, Duan Lingtian was not the only one who felt as if a lifetime had passed. A group of Zoroastrianism leaders who bowed to Duan Lingtian while congratulating him for becoming a guardian. Whether or not they had met Duan Lingtian in the past, they all felt as if they were in another world. A few years ago, Duan Lingtian was only a true disciple in Zoroastrianism. No matter how outstanding he was still only a true disciple. Who would have thought? Only a few years had passed, and the true disciple of the past had already become so powerful. He had even become the protector of the Zoroastrianism. In Zoroastrianism, the status of the protector was second only to the supreme leader. It could be said that he was below only one person and above all others. Elder Guoxiong, the promise I made back then is still valid. If there's anything you need my help with in the future, feel free to ask. Duan Lingtian said to Guoxiong, the Black Turtle Sanctum's enforcement elder, through voice transmission. Back then, when he asked Guoxiong to help him send Zhu Luqi away, he had promised Guoxiong that he would repay the favor in the future. Thank you, Lingtian. Hearing Duan Lingtian's voice transmission, Guoxiong was a little flattered and quickly thanked him with a slightly excited tone. After all, the current Duan Lingtian was no longer the ordinary disciple of Zoroastrianism. Right now, Duan Lingtian was a figure of Zoroastrianism, second only to one and above all. He knew very well in his heart. The promise Duan Lingtian made to him was a priceless treasure. After the higher-ups of the Zoroastrianism bowed and congratulated Duan Lingtian, they looked at the hall master of the Law Enforcement Hall, Lung Ying, and bowed to him as well. From the order in which they bowed and congratulated him, it could be seen that, in their eyes, Duan Lingtian's status was undoubtedly higher. The reason for this was naturally because they had heard that Duan Lingtian had defeated Icehawk with 3 strikes 3 days ago. They knew very well that Duan Lingtian was far stronger than Icehawk. This was a world where the strong were respected, so it was understandable for them to do so. At the very least, Frigid Eagle did not show any dissatisfaction. In this regard, he was very self-aware. Senior brother Lu Yun, senior brother Lu Mu, long time no see. While the disciples of Zoroastrianism bowed and congratulated Lung Ying, Duan Lingtian's gaze locked onto 2 people among the disciples of the Holy Land. Lu Yun and Lu Mu. The 2 of them were also his few friends in Zoroastrianism. When Lu Mu and Lu Yun heard Duan Lingtian's voice transmission, they could not help but feel emotional. They were so emotional that they were at a loss for words. Junior brother Lingtian did not forget about them. I'll look for both of you for a drink later. When Lu Mu and Lu Yun were so emotional that they were at a loss for words, Duan Lingtian sent them another voice transmission. Now that he had dealt with the Dong clan's father and son, coupled with his current status in Zoroastrianism, He no longer had to worry about anyone venting their anger on the Liu brothers because of him. For this reason, they no longer had to pretend that they were no longer friends. Although the sect leader of Zoroastrianism was still a threat, even if he were to vent his anger on the sect leader of Zoroastrianism for rescuing Kerr and her daughter, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism would not lower himself to deal with the Liu brothers. No matter what, the Liu brothers were still disciples of Zoroastrianism. On this day, news of the addition of 2 new guardians to the Zoroastrianism spread like wildfire. It did not take long for the news to spread throughout the western region. Duan Lingtian, a guardian of the Saint sect? It's said that one must have a cultivation base at the 7th form of the Saint celestial stage, or above to become a guardian of the Saint sect. Lung Ying, the hall master of the Saint sect's enforcement hall, only became a guardian because he had a breakthrough in his cultivation base. I heard that Duan Lingtian defeated Lung Ying in 3 strikes not long ago. Heavens! It has only been a few years, but Duan Lingtian has become so strong. It seems like the news from Sin City is true. Duan Lingtian must have really killed one of the 4 great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Golden Lion King, Xiekong Sun, with 3 strikes. In the western region, one could hear people exclaiming about Duan Lingtian everywhere. Naturally, there were other voices as well. For example, there were voices praising Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. The sect leader of the Saint sect is wise. He personally announced that he would invite Duan Lingtian to return, so that the Saint sect would have another guardian. Moreover, he's so strong that he's not any weaker than Guardian Zifeng, the leader of the Saint sect's 3 great guardians. That's right. Lord sect leader of the Saint sect is really wise. When everyone was doubting the news of Duan Lingtian killing Xiekong Sun, he personally announced that he would invite Duan Lingtian to return. He's really wise. Not only is the sect leader of the Saint sect wise, but his cultivation base has also broken through to the 9th form of the Saint celestial stage, the celestial ascension form. Under the leadership of him and the 5 guardians, the Saint sect will definitely reach new heights. It's not impossible for it to surpass the other 2 great sects. As the news of Zoroastrianism spread, the entire western region was in an uproar. This news shook the entire western region, and at the same time, it also began to spread outside. The central, southern, and northern regions were the first to fall. Duan Lingtian has returned to Zoroastrianism? I heard that Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, personally announced that he would return. I'm afraid the news of the Supreme Saint ranking has just spread to the western region. Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, actually invited Duan Lingtian to return when everyone doubted Duan Lingtian's strength? Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, is really wise, right? Wise? I don't think so. I think he invited Duan Lingtian back because of the Devil Seal tablet in Duan Lingtian's possession. Why do you say that? Didn't he say he's willing to swear on the lightning penalty oath that he won't let anyone, including himself, lay their hands on the Devil Seal tablet? It's true that he won't let anyone lay their hands on it. However, once the Devil clans invade, I'm sure he'll be able to borrow the Devil Seal tablet from Duan Lingtian, right? With the Devil Seal tablet, Zoroastrianism will be like a tiger that has grown wings when the Devil clans invade in the future. Compared to the commotion caused by Duan Lingtian's strength in the western region, the news of the Supreme Saint ranking had spread far and wide. People in other places had already confirmed that Duan Lingtian had killed Xiekong Sun, the Golden Lion King of Zhuangzi Buddhism. For this reason, they were not surprised by the strength that Duan Lingtian had displayed in Zoroastrianism. However, they were surprised that the sect leader of Zoroastrianism had personally invited Duan Lingtian back. Moreover, Duan Lingtian had also returned to Zoroastrianism. At the same time, the new Supreme Saint ranking had also spread to the western region. The person who was originally ranked 18th on the Supreme Saint ranking, the Golden Lion King, Xiekong Sun, one of the 4 great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism, was killed by Duan Lingtian with 3 strikes in Sin City. Many people who were present at the scene can testify that if Duan Lingtian did not intentionally spare Siekong Sun, Siekong Sun might not even be able to withstand one strike from Duan Lingtian. After killing Siekong Sun, Duan Lingtian replaced him and became the powerhouse who was ranked 18th on the Supreme Saint ranking. This was the new Supreme Saint rankings information regarding the 18th place. The Golden Lion King, Siekong Sun, one of the four great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism, was really killed by Duan Lingtian. Even the new Supreme Saint ranking has sorted out this matter. It can't be fake, Yifutian said. Humph. With Duan Lingtian's current strength, let alone being ranked 18th on the Supreme Saint ranking, he can easily enter the top 15 of the Supreme Saint ranking. Indeed, after all, there's news that Duan Lingtian's strength is not only stronger than Guardian Lung Ying from the Saint sect, but he's also stronger than Guardian Hong Yin from the Saint sect. Guardian Hong Yin is ranked 16th on the Supreme Saint ranking. When the new Supreme Saint ranking was spread to the Western region, there were many similar discussions in the Western region. The Western region was in an uproar again. Based on Guardian Ling Tian's achievements at such a young age, he can be considered as the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint land. That's right. Even Pei Si Hai, who's widely acknowledged as the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint land, can't compare to Guardian Ling Tian at all. Guardian Ling Tian is the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint land. As time passed, not only did the people in the Western region acknowledge Duan Lingtian as the #1 prodigy in the Dao Martial Saint land, but even people from other places also agreed with this statement. After all, they were 100% certain about Duan Lingtian's background. He's not even 50 years old, and he's already so accomplished. Guardian Lingtian from the Zoroastrianism can be considered as a peerless monster. In the history of the Dao Martial Saint land, I don't think there's anyone as monstrous as him, right? Even the Sword Saint from back then seemed to be slightly inferior to him when compared to his achievements at such a young age. The Zoroastrianism is in luck this time. They found a treasure. Similar discussions could be heard everywhere in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint land. Since Duan Lingtian has returned to Zoroastrianism, it's only natural that our Zhuangzi Buddhism won't let the matter of him killing Siekong Sun, the Karmapa of our Zhuangzi Buddhism. That's right. If our Zhuangzi Buddhism doesn't pursue this matter, the world might think that our Zhuangzi Buddhism is afraid of the Zoroastrianism. We must avenge the Golden Lion King. The Zhuangzi Buddhism was not calm as well. Although they had confirmed that one of the four great Karmapa of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Golden Lion King, had died in the hands of Duan Lingtian, they did not know where Duan Lingtian was. Due to this reason, there was no way they could seek revenge. Now that they found out that Duan Lingtian had returned to Zoroastrianism and had even become a guardian of Zoroastrianism. Chapter 2192. When the higher-ups of Zhuangzi Buddhism began to make a ruckus, things got out of hand. In the end, it even alerted the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism. The sect leader of the Black Kshetra sect was a skinny old man dressed in black. He stood there like a dried corpse draped in black. He gave off an eerie vibe. In particular, the black clothes he was wearing were embroidered with extremely terrifying skulls, which gave people an inexplicable pressure. In any case, the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism did not look like a normal person at all. At this moment, the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism looked for the two remaining Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism. He said to the two Karmapa, "Karmapa, if we don't resolve this matter, I'm afraid the elders and disciples won't agree to it. Moreover, they're right. Now that Duan Lingtian has returned to Zoroastrianism, if Zhuangzi Buddhism doesn't do anything, not only will it disappoint the elders and disciples, but it'll also become a laughingstock." When the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism reached the end of his sentence, a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. From this, one could see how much the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism hated Duan Lingtian. In fact, it was understandable. After all, Siekong Sun, who was killed by Duan Lingtian, was one of the four great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Golden Lion King. He was one of the pillars of Zhuangzi Buddhism. 3 years ago, one of the four great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Greenback King, Wuxia, had died in the trap left behind by the three eminent devils. Due to this, the Zhuangzi Buddhism had lost a great general. Wuxia's death was due to greed. Even if the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism regretted allowing Wuxia to enter that place, he could only grit his teeth and bear with it. However, the death of Siekong Sun, the Golden Lion King, was different. He was killed by someone. Furthermore, that person had a name and a surname. Furthermore, he knew all the details about that person. Duan Lingtian was one of the lucky ones who obtained the Super Saint weapon, the Devil Seal Tablet, in the lower province. However, the Devil Seal Tablet was taken away by Zhuangzi Buddhism's elder, Siekong Sun Buddhism. After that, he came to the upper province and joined Zoroastrianism. After he joined Zoroastrianism, he created many legends and legends. It did not take him long before he became a prodigy. After that, Duan Lingtian left the fire worship sect and killed Xiezong to take back the Devil Seal Tablet. Then, there was the matter of the trap left behind by the three eminent celestials from the devil clans. The trap that killed many powerhouses in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land seemed to have benefited Duan Lingtian. In just 3 years, Duan Lingtian had become extremely powerful. He even killed Siekong Sun, the Golden Lion King, one of the four great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism. Without waiting for the two Karmapa to respond, the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism continued. Apart from that, Duan Lingtian must have many secrets as well. For example, how did he survive the trap left behind by the three eminent devils? His strength, how did he obtain such an exaggerated increase in a short span of 3 years? Is his increase in strength due to the trap left behind by the three eminent devils? If it's related, we can try to pry this secret out of his mouth. If his experience that can be called a fortuitous encounter can be replicated, our strength might be greatly improved because of this. When the sect leader of Black Kshetra sect reached the end of his sentence, a hint of greed could be heard in his voice. The eyes of the two remaining Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Violet Dragon King and the White Tiger King, brightened when they heard his words. The Violet Dragon King was a woman. She was the only woman among the four great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism. She was the leader of the four great Karmapa, and the current leader of the two great Karmapa. She was wearing a purple robe. Although it was not the skin-tight type, it was still difficult to conceal her graceful figure. Her beautiful long hair draped behind her back. Although there was a purple veil covering her face, one could faintly guess that her face under the veil must be peerlessly beautiful from her pair of delicate eyebrows and beautiful eyes. She exuded a cold aura as she stood there. It was as though she was unapproachable. The White Tiger King was a muscular young man. He was also the leader of the four great Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism. His strength was second only to the Violet Dragon King among the four great Karmapa. Naturally, many people in Zhuangzi Buddhism felt that the Violet Dragon King's strength was not inferior to the Violet Dragon King. In fact, the White Tiger King was not inferior to the Violet Dragon King. The reason why he let the Amethyst Dragon King win so many times was because he was deliberately letting the Amethyst Dragon King win. It was not a secret in the Black Kshetra sect that he liked the Violet Dragon King. He had been in love with her for many years. The White Tiger King was a handsome and cheerful young man. He was dressed in a loose white robe. His eyebrows were straight, and he exuded a majestic aura. He stood there like a crouching tiger. He exuded a strong sense of deterrence. Sect leader, our Zhuangzi Buddhism can't swallow this humiliation. Whether it's to prevent the elders and disciples from being disappointed, or to prevent outsiders from saying that our Zhuangzi Buddhism is inferior to Zoroastrianism, or to prevent the Duan Lingtian from revealing the secret. The Violet Dragon King was the first to express her opinion. A hint of greed could be seen in the depth of her eyes when she expressed her opinion. Indeed, the White Tiger King expressed his agreement with the Violet Dragon King. The sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism did not care about the White Tiger King's opinion. When the Violet Dragon King expressed her opinion, he already knew the outcome of his visit to the two Karmapa. This was because the White Tiger King had always followed the Violet Dragon King's lead. Since both Karmapa agreed to go to Zoroastrianism and question the Duanling Tian, why don't both Karmapa come with me to visit the Supreme Elder? The Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism looked at the Violet Dragon King and the White Tiger King and said in a slightly hurried tone. And this was also his ultimate goal. He wanted to go with the two Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism to visit the Supreme Elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism and ask him to personally go to Zoroastrianism to question the guardian of Zoroastrianism, Duanling Tian. They needed the Supreme Elder's help because of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, had recently broken through to the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage, the Celestial Ascension form. In the entire Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Supreme Elder was the only one who could stop him. If the Supreme Elder did not accompany them to go to Zoroastrianism to question the Duanling Tian, they would not be able to achieve anything. The sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism knew this very well. All right. The Violet Dragon King nodded. Then, she and the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism went to visit the Supreme Elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism. She knew very well, if they wanted to go to Zoroastrianism to question the Duanling Tian, they would need the Supreme Elder's help. Otherwise, Zoroastrianism would not be able to do anything. The White Tiger King, naturally, followed closely behind the Violet Dragon King when he saw the Violet Dragon King making her move. Zhuangzi Buddhism was different from Zoroastrianism. In Zoroastrianism, the sect leader was the most respected person. In Zhuangzi Buddhism, the sect leader did not have much of a presence. At the very least, he did not have much of a presence in front of the Supreme Elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism and the two Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Violet Dragon King and the White Tiger King. This was because the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism was only ranked 4th in Zhuangzi Buddhism. His cultivation base was only at the peak of the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage. The Violet Dragon King and the White Tiger King were both at the 8th form of the Saint Celestial stage. As for the Supreme Elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, he was even more powerful. He was at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage and was ranked 2nd on the Supreme Saint ranking. His strength was only inferior to Nie Wu Tian, the strongest person in the Tao Martial Saint land. Since the sect leader of Zhuangzi Buddhism and the two remaining Karmapa of Zhuangzi Buddhism had personally made a move, it was only natural that they managed to invite the Supreme Elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism to help them. Soon after, a group of people flew out of the Zhuangzi Buddhism's estate and headed west at an extremely fast speed. Their destination was Zoroastrianism in the western region. The group of powerhouses from Zhuangzi Buddhism made their way out in a grandiose manner. Their target was the Zoroastrianism and the guardian of Zoroastrianism, Duanling Tian. Naturally, Duanling Tian was unaware of all this as the person involved. At this moment, Duanling Tian's expression changed drastically because of a piece of news that he'd just obtained. Sealing will be executed in 3 months. Duanling Tian had just heard the news that Tang Xian, the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, had announced to the public. Tang Xian and Ker's daughter, Duan Xiling, would be executed in 3 months. 3 months. It's not enough. It's not enough at all. Duanling Tian was so anxious that his expression was so dark that it looked like it could drip water. Even if he entered the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda and cultivated with all his might, it would still be impossible for him to break through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage in 3 months. If he could not break through to the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, it would be impossible for him to rescue Ker and their daughter using the most direct method. I have to think of a way. I have to rescue Ker and our daughter within 3 months. At this moment, Duanling Tian felt extremely depressed. He was on the verge of going crazy. His daughter, whom he had never met, was going to be executed in 3 months' time. Until now, he had not thought of a way to save her. As a father, he was useless. He was too useless. Duanling Tian wanted to go out and get some fresh air, so he left his residence and made his way to the Saint Island aimlessly. Whoosh! At this moment, a person flew over from the Saint Island and met Duan Lingtian face to face. Chapter 2193. The woman who was approaching Duan Lingtian was none other than Wen Yan, the other direct disciple of the sanctum leader of Azure Dragon Sanctum. She was also the one who reported Gan Ru Yen. It was precisely because of her report that Ko-er and her mother were discovered by the people from the law enforcement hall, and were even imprisoned. Later on, Duan Lingtian came to Zoroastrianism and learned that Ker and her daughter were imprisoned by the enforcement hall because of her report. Due to this reason, he taught her a lesson and formed an enmity between them. Her senior brother, Bu Hong, had stood up for her and had his innate spiritual root crippled by Duan Lingtian. Her master did not even have the time to stand up for her two direct disciples when Duan Lingtian had already left the fire worship sect. When Duan Lingtian returned, her master no longer had the chance to avenge his two direct disciples. This was because when Duan Lingtian returned, he was already strong enough to make her master bow down to him. Duan Lingtian. Wen Yan's complexion turned pale when she saw the young man, who was getting closer and closer to her. Her delicate body began to tremble violently due to fear. The young man was dressed in purple. He did not wear the uniform of a Zoroastrianism elder or disciple. Due to this reason, he was particularly eye-catching. However, Wen Yan's attention was not on the young man's casual attire, but his face. Although she had only seen his face once in a portrait, it had left a deep impression on her. Now that she saw him again, it was as though she had seen a ghost. Duan Lingtian returned to Zoroastrianism after Lord Sect Leader personally announced his return. With his strength, he became a guardian of Zoroastrianism. After Duan Lingtian returned to Zoroastrianism, he defeated the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum and the hall master of the enforcement hall. He even defeated the sanctum leader of White Tiger Sanctum after he broke through to the seventh form of the Saint Celestial stage. Dong Yuanjin, the vice hall master of the enforcement hall, and his son Dong Lin were killed by Duan Lingtian. Dong Yuanjin was killed in front of the hall master of the enforcement hall. Wen Yan had learned about this from the Saint Island after she came out of closed-door cultivation. She had been in closed-door cultivation for quite some time, so she was unaware of what had happened after Duan Lingtian had escaped from the trap left behind by the three eminent devils. Her understanding of Duan Lingtian was still the same as it was a few years ago. She did not expect that she would be in closed-door cultivation. She only went into seclusion for a while, and when she came out again, the outside world had already changed. Currently, Duan Lingtian had grown to a point where even her master, Lu Tai, the sanctum leader of the Azure Dragon Sanctum, was no match for him. She had completely given up on the thought of taking revenge on Duan Lingtian that she had been hiding in the depths of her heart. She was no longer on the same level as Duan Lingtian. She was no longer qualified to be Duan Lingtian's enemy. However, Wen Yan would never have dreamed that she would be so unlucky. She had just returned from the Saint Island when she bumped into Duan Lingtian. When she thought about how terrifying Duan Lingtian was, she felt as though her legs were filled with lead. She could not move at all. Wen Yan. Duan Lingtian noticed Wen Yan at the same time. He didn't expect to run into the woman who had reported Gan Ru Yen in the past, when he was just out for a walk. When he thought about how Ker and her daughter were imprisoned by the law enforcement hall, Duan Lingtian's gaze immediately turned cold, causing Wen Yan to feel as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Her face turned pale from fright, and her body trembled even more violently. Suddenly, humph! With a cold snort, the Sun Saint Qi in Duan Lingtian's body surged as a powerful aura burst out of his body and swept towards Wen Yan. Immediately, Wen Yan was suppressed by this aura, and her body trembled even more violently. At the same time, her face became even paler, and she spat out a large mouthful of blood. Whoosh! Almost at the same time she vomited blood, Wen Yan also knelt down in the void, trembling as she kowtowed to Duan Lingtian and begged for mercy. "Protector Lingtian, spare me, spare me." She knew very well in her heart. Even if Duan Lingtian killed her, it would be a trivial matter, and no one would pursue the matter. Although she was a true disciple of Zoroastrianism, she was not worth mentioning in front of Duan Lingtian, the protector of Zoroastrianism. In terms of importance in Zoroastrianism, even 100 of her could not be compared to one Duan Lingtian. Faced with Wen Yan's kowtowing and begging for mercy, Duan Lingtian could not help but look disgusted. In the end, he did not kill her. He moved his body, stepped into the void, and passed by Wen Yan, who was kneeling on the ground. Whoosh! When Duan Lingtian passed by Wen Yan like a gust of wind, Wen Yan's heart was in her mouth, and she was extremely nervous. If Duan Lingtian struck her, she would be crippled even if she did not die. She only sighed in relief when Duan Lingtian passed by her and disappeared into the distance. At the same time, she felt a chill run down her spine. She was so frightened that she broke out in cold sweat. I'll take your innate talent as a punishment for you. This was the thought that appeared in Duan Lingtian's mind when he passed by Wen Yan. As it turned out, when Duan Lingtian passed by Wen Yan, he had used his divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic, and his spiritual energy to instantly remove Wen Yan's innate spiritual root from her soul and devour it. This was a technique that Duan Lingtian had mastered after his cultivation base had broken through to the 6th form of the Saint Celestial stage, the heavenly soul form, and his soul had undergone a major transformation. Currently, he could take away the innate spiritual root of someone whose soul was weaker than him. Moreover, he would not be discovered by his opponent at all. Wen Yan was only a martial cultivator at the 2nd form of the Saint Celestial stage. There was a huge gap between her soul and his. With his current soul, he could silently devour the soul of someone below the 4th form of the Saint Celestial stage. Naturally, this would consume a lot of his spiritual energy. For example, he had consumed more than half of his spiritual energy when he devoured Wen Yan's innate spiritual root. If he had used violence to take Wen Yan's innate spiritual root, he would not have needed to consume so much spiritual energy since he did not need it at all. Naturally, Wen Yan was unaware of this. It's a good thing he didn't make a move on me. Otherwise I would have died. After Duan Lingtian left, Wen Yan heaved a long sigh of relief. She looked as though she had just survived a disaster. However, a hint of viciousness could be seen in the depth of her eyes. It was as though she wanted to tear Duan Lingtian into pieces. Naturally, there was a hint of unwillingness in her eyes as well. He's going to execute the Saint Girl's daughter in 3 months. That little girl is really pitiful. She didn't do anything wrong, but she has to pay with her life. She can only blame herself for not being born into a good family. I hope she'll be born into a good family in her next life. Lord Sect Leader is really strange. Isn't the Saint Girl the one who committed the crime? Why hasn't he announced the Saint Girl's punishment yet? Why did he announce the execution of the Saint Girl's daughter? After entering the Saint Island, Duan Lingtian could hear many similar discussions from afar. She was born into the wrong family. Duan Lingtian's eyes flashed with determination. Si Ling, I won't let anything happen to you. Never. At the peak of a snow-capped mountain in the northern region. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It was snowing heavily again. Snowflakes fell like feathers, making the snow-capped mountain look as though it was covered in a layer of white. Through the snow-capped mountain, one could vaguely see 2 graceful figures standing at the peak of the snow-capped mountain. Although the snow was falling heavily, it seemed to be repelled by an invisible force when it got close to the 2 figures. It was difficult to touch their clothes, let alone their bodies. These were 2 peerless beauties. Their temperaments were extraordinary, and each of them was unique in their own way. The 2 of them stood side by side at the peak of the snow-capped mountain. It was as though everything around them paled in comparison to them. Sister Tian Wu, Brother Ling Tian is so powerful. He actually killed one of the 4 great Karmapa of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, the Golden Lion King, Xie Kong Sun. Xie Kong Sun was at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage, and he was ranked 18th on the Supreme Saint ranking. One of the women had a mischievous expression on her face. 2 cute dimples could be seen on her cheeks. It was so adorable that one could not help but want to hug her cheeks and take a bite out of them. Initially, I thought I'd be able to surpass Brother Ling Tian after my strength was raised by the 6 absolutes heaven-defying fate-changing grand formation. However, it seems like I was dreaming. The woman sighed when she reached the end of her sentence. What's wrong? Xuanai, do you really want to surpass elder brother Duan so badly? The other woman in fiery red clothes could not help but look at the woman beside her and ask with a smile when she heard the words of the woman beside her. Of course not. The woman called Xuanai shook her head and said solemnly, in my heart, Brother Ling Tian has always been the strongest. Even the successor of the Fog Rain progeny, the first absolute of the 7 absolute sect, is not a match for him. Upon hearing this, the other woman couldn't help but be startled. Then, an even wider smile appeared on her face. Sister Tian Wu, why are you smiling? The woman in front asked with a frown. Nothing. I'm just thinking that if elder brother Duan finds out about your current innate talent and strength, he'll definitely be shocked. The other woman shook her head and smiled as she changed the topic. There were some things that she could not say since she had made a promise to someone. Based on the way the two women addressed each other, it was obvious who they were. They were none other than Han Xuanai and Feng Tianwu. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.